Young Suiyun traveled through time and carried the cheat, Krypton, with him. He originally planned to punch Nintendo, kick Sega, and slap Microsoft and Sony each, becoming the only king in the gaming industry from then on. Who would have thought that this plane was actually a Hong Kong comprehensive with so much trouble? Young Suiyun felt a headache and only hoped that 97 would arrive soon. But there are still 13 years left until 1997, when Young Suiyun, who is known for his virtue and unparalleled benevolence and righteousness, had to grit his teeth and put on a hanging campaign to smash all paper tigers. Hammering and hammering, Young Suiyun noticed that the road in front of him had widened, expanding from the gaming industry to the entertainment and technology industries. Keywords of the novel. The opening of the Hong Kong variety show is 300 million without a pop-up window. The opening of the Hong Kong variety show is 300 million. Download the full text, and read the latest chapters of the opening of the Hong Kong variety show is 300 million. Chapter 1. $1 billion opening. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 $1 billion opening. Young Suiyun knelt in front of his grandmother's portrait and solemnly kowtowed 3 times. Every time Young Suiyun kowtowed, his grandmother's advice rang in his ear. Jiu Zai, you must always remember that you can be a fish dealer, a pig killer, or a driver, but you cannot be a fool. You have a mind and the ability to read, that's your ability. We don't have the ability to support you in college, which is our elders' lack of ability and hinders you. But this is not an excuse for you to give up on yourself, let alone a reason for you to join the club in the future. Grandma's time is running out, let's just nag one more thing. Don't take the wrong path, don't be like your old bean, and live your life steadily. Looking down at the 2 tall and fierce young men in front of him, Young Suiyun raised his right hand and asked Chen Haonan and the 5 of them to stop shouting and cursing at the person across from him. Sand Grasshopper, you have also repaired Haonan and them before, and the grudges have settled. Now you are bringing people to block us, isn't it a bit too much? The Sand Grasshopper looked at the handsome and upright-looking guy in front of him, who was also very capable of fighting. Anger surged in his heart, filling his entire chest, making him feel suffocated and suppressed. But the pain in her ribs made the grasshopper understand that her fists were not hard enough, so it was better not to be too hard on her own. Let the crow next to her confront Young Suiyun hard, and find an opportunity to use her black hand. Yun Gu, I don't want to confront you either. It's just that the chickens' mouths are too cheap, making me feel embarrassed in front of the big shots. Obstructing others' future, such as killing parents. Brother Yun, you have read more books than us, so you should be able to understand this truth. Although I don't know why Shah Grasshopper, who has always been irritable and impulsive, showed weakness, the younger brothers behind him were very cooperative and immediately started to cheer up, supporting their own boss. Yun Gu, if it weren't for the stinky mouths of the mountain chickens, Shah Grasshopper would have long worshipped under the door of the East Star Big Boss. That's right, these useless chickens only spread rumors and try their best to tarnish Brother Sand Grasshopper's reputation. Yes, it's all Chen Haonan and his team's fault that Shah Grasshopper can't take over. Speaking of which, the younger brothers of the Sand Grasshopper secretly glanced at Young Suiyun. It was the tall and thin handsome guy in front of them that made both the Sand Grasshopper and the crow unable to lift their heads and still unable to rise to the top. The leading camel has repeatedly stated that it has great confidence in Young Suiyun. This handsome guy not only has good skills, but also has a very intelligent mind. Dongxing needs such talent. The younger brothers also have some strange thoughts in their hearts, such as standing on Yun Ji's side. After all, as long as Yun Gu is around, the big shots will only focus their attention on him. No matter how fierce Shah Grasshopper Gu is, the strongest can only rank second. What, we're not the little brothers of the Sand Grasshopper. Oh, Big Brother is for sale. What kind of benevolence, righteousness, and morality does Kapuzi talk about? Money, money, or sweet money. No matter how powerful Brother Sha Chong is, he is only a grasshopper after autumn in front of Brother Yun. Suddenly, something came to mind. The little brothers of the sand grasshopper couldn't help but glance at the people behind the crow. They were the most miserable. It was said that they couldn't even eat enough to live with the crow. Grass, what kind of slander? It's all true, Brother Yuan is the most powerful. The sand grasshopper and the crow squinted their eyes and looked at the suddenly opening pheasant, with a fierce light in their eyes. Whether it's their height or reputation, both of them are slightly shorter than young Suiyun, making it difficult for them to climb up one level. There isn't much highlight performance, why would the boss give you a high glance and lift you up? The crow didn't want to get involved, but when Yang Suiyun tried to calm the sand grasshopper down, it meant that if he wanted to take over, he had to kill the person who was blocking him. In order to win the favor of the camel, the crow felt that it needed to do something, so it agreed to the proposal of the sand grasshopper. The crow pointed to the mountain chicken, looked at Yang Suiyun, sneered, and said, "Josie, is that how you manage your little brother?" Yang Suiyun's expression suddenly changed, he looked coldly at the crow and warned, "Chen Tianxiong, be careful when you speak, don't really croak like a crow." The crow paused for a moment, then remembered that Chen Tianxiong was his own name. Looking at the decline of the crow, Chen Haonan couldn't help but sneer, "Crow, if you don't know how to speak human language, don't say it. It's so unpleasant." The 4 mountain chickens all spoke in agreement and mocked the crow. "Oh, crow, they're mocking you for not being big or small." The grasshopper beside him added as he noticed the crow's face gradually turning ugly, and took out a pair of gloves from his pocket. The crow glanced at the grasshopper and snorted coldly, saying, "Isn't it big or small?" Glancing at Yang Suiyun and his 6 companions, the crow grinned and pointed to the grasshopper, saying, "Although you have a bad appearance and a poisonous mouth, this time you have spoken human language. Kill the big ones and then clean up these small ones. This is indeed no big or small. Upon hearing the crow's words, everyone was stunned. Can you still interpret it this way? The crow silently checked the metal chain around its waist and untied it. Kill them. The crow let out a loud roar, and its entire face looked unusually ferocious and terrifying. Before he could finish speaking, the crow suddenly threw the chain, and the head of the chain was a somewhat cumbersome metal ball. Yang Suiyun did not expect the crow to be so ungrateful. The 2 of them were very close, within 2 meters, unable to dodge for a moment, and were heavily hit in the chest by the iron ball. With a dull sound, Yang Suiyun only felt the heartbeat in his chest slow down, and his breathing couldn't help but become sluggish. Brother Yun. Seeing Yang Suiyun being attacked by crows, his body began to shake. Chen Haonan and others were shocked and shouted loudly. Up. The sand grasshopper raised its mouth and equipped the iron-fingered tiger, giving orders to the little brothers behind him. Chen Haonan, Shan Ji, De Tianer, and Bao Daming rushed straight ahead and blocked Yang Suiyun. Bao Deer stepped forward to support Yang Suiyun and was ready to block his attack. Chen Haonan and his companions knew that as long as Yungu regained his senses, whether it was a grasshopper or a crow, he was just a local chicken and a dog. The sand grasshopper and crow naturally knew this, so they asked the little brothers to quickly pull away the 5 of Chen Haonan who were in trouble. Yang Suiyun shook his head and caught a glimpse of the crow rushing towards him. Based on his intuition, he rushed forward and grabbed his clothes tightly with both hands, while also giving a fierce knee strike. Yang Suiyun's strength far exceeded the crow's imagination, and he couldn't break free. The crow couldn't help but curse the sand grasshopper in its heart, but the sand grasshopper didn't tell the truth. Such a fierce person, the sand grasshopper actually said that the opponent was just relying on height advantage. The crow really wanted to turn around and give the sand grasshopper an iron ball, causing his head to explode. With a roar, the crow gritted its teeth, intending to trade the injury for one, and decisively smashed the iron ball in its hand towards Yang Suiyun's head. On the other hand, Chen Haonan and Sha Grasshopper got into a fight, while Shan Ji and others were responsible for stopping the others and not letting them come forward to beat Yang Suiyun. I will complain, scold myself, and if it's not for fear of pain, I will even slap myself hard, but that doesn't mean I'm cynical or self-destructive. Life is not going well, but I will still live on. Now reborn into this unfamiliar yet somewhat familiar world, young Suiyun always feels empty in his heart, feeling lost. In a daze, my heart feels heavy and suffocating. If possible, young Suiyun does not want to be reborn. From beginning to end, young Suiyun was always a nostalgic person. The momentary daze made people's eyes blur. Who can forget the past? Can we start over again? On February 1, 1984, New Year's Eve, Shek Kip Mei Public Housing Estate. Yang Suiyun lit 3 incense sticks and inserted them into the incense burner. Cigarettes curl, rise, dissipate, leaving only a faint scent. 7 days have passed since being reborn. Young Suiyun accepted reality and also received a cheat called Krypton technology is the first productivity, abbreviated as Krypton power. Krypton. Equipment bar, only 2-handed weapon grids have been unlocked, 1,000 cubic meters of portable storage space, Mind Workshop, Raspberry Pi, games, and game peripherals can be freely modified, mall-only games and game peripherals have been unlocked. In addition to the above-mentioned pendant, Krypton Ely also bestowed a talent on young Suiyun. 9 oxen and 2 tigers. Regarding Raspberry Pi, Krypton Ely allowed young Suiyun to choose 2 patents for his own use. After a few seconds of contemplation, young Suiyun chose the ARM processor in Raspberry Pi's official system Raspbian. As for the patents related to important components such as memory, storage cards, USB interfaces, HDMI interfaces, etc., we can only discuss them in the future. Although there are some minor flaws in the cheat, young Suiyun is very satisfied with it. Immediately after, young Suiyun regained his composure, with a hint of displeasure on his face. Is this cheat implying that he, as a traveler, is very naughty and afraid of death? Is it true that without cheats, the grand passers-by would be able to roam the streets in the world of Hong Kong variety shows? How can we underestimate ourselves, and make people innocent? Oh, you're so accurate at judging people. After taking a deep breath, young Suiyun adjusted his mindset, sat down with dignity, and casually picked up a newspaper from yesterday. Casino tycoon Lu Yaozu's mansion was stolen and his wife was killed. Young Suiyun's eyes lit up. Although I can't remember the name and plot of the movie clearly, I still remember some impressive things. For example, where are the 300 million yuan anonymous bonds hidden? For example, the unique skill of the character played by Leung Ka-hui can make the younger brother perform up, down, left, right, front, back and forth movements. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration flashed in Yang Suiyun's mind. 300 million yuan was in front of him, why not go and get it? The oil crisis that occurred in early 1980 greatly affected Hong Kong's economy, and housing prices reached a historic low. But in early 1985, influenced by the linked exchange rate system, housing prices began to rise. Of course, young Suiyun didn't know about these things. He only knew that if he had money, he would spend it. If he didn't spend it, he would be a fool. After receiving the money, Young Suiyun plans to go to Hong Kong Island to buy a house. After a few years, when the immigration wave arrives, he will go to Shallow Water Bay in the southern district of Hong Kong Island to buy a villa and live a dull and tasteless life. Will Lu Yaozu retaliate? Balzac once said that behind wealth, there is always crime. Lu Yaozu, a man who earns money by illegal means and eats human blood mantu, should have taken to the streets long ago. Crossers are never afraid of anything, especially those who are hanging. Young Suiyun has always been convincing people with virtue, especially now that he has cheating, he has more confidence to reason and present facts to others. Just as young Suiyun was fantasizing about playing the honorific title of unparalleled benevolence and righteousness, a knock on the door sounded. Shanhe, why did you come? The person who came was actually a mountain chicken. The mountain chicken showed an unnatural smile and said, Yun, today is New Year's Eve. We plan to treat you to a meal. Haonan and his team are already waiting for us in the store. Shanji felt a bit puzzled. Since Yungu recovered, his personality has changed a lot and he doesn't feel as close as before. Is it because the head was smashed and the problem occurred? Yang Suiyun nodded and smiled. Where is it? The mountain chicken touched its fluffy chicken coop head and said awkwardly, we can't raise much money in the Kowloon ice room, we can only go there. It's okay, as long as you have the intention. Yang Suiyun smiled and then paused. Jiulong ice room. This name sounds a bit familiar. Brother Yun, let's go. Oh, good. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. When young Chen Haonan meets young Chen Haonan. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 2. When young Chen Haonan meets young Chen Haonan. Looking at the Nine Dragons Ice Room plaque above, Yang Suiyun's face showed a strange expression, thinking to himself that there wouldn't really be another Chen Haonan inside, right? Brother Yun, come in, it's inside. The mountain chicken pushed the door open and urged. Yang Suiyun pushed open the other door, walked in, scanned around, and indeed saw Chen Haonan and the four of them. Brother Yun, it's been a long time waiting for you here. Bao De, who still had scars on his face, waved his hand. The people in the store instinctively turned their heads to look at the door and thought to themselves, isn't a person coming from here someone with a rough face? Who would have thought that the opposite was true? The person came with a dignified demeanor, tall and handsome. The most rare and precious thing is that this person doesn't have any antique charm, but exudes a sense of righteousness. In short, this handsome guy is the unshakable protagonist, naturally upright. The students chatting couldn't help but glance at Yang Suiyun a few more times. Don't you think he's much more handsome than that Haonan brother? That's needless to say, that guy named Haonan, although he looks good, he always feels like he has an evil aura on him. Cut, what kind of evil energy is that kind of flowing aura on the ancient playboy's body? Mr. Meng, who was sitting next door, paused his tutoring and couldn't help but turn his head. Then his eyes lit up, and he was indeed a shining handsome guy, just the opposite of Wan Nguyen's temperament. Amon, what's so attractive about that furry guy? There's more to success than defeat. A young man held a drink and placed it on the table, then continued, this drink is just a apology, won't you not give face? Teacher Meng glanced at the yellow hair on the opposite side and said calmly, you have nothing to do. Please be attentive and leave as soon as you put it down. Huang Mao apologized and said, okay, just leave. You must drink. Teacher Meng didn't lift his head, just waved his hand and signaled to get lost quickly. Huang Mao stood up and only took a step when he saw the little kid across from him picking up a drink and letting it spill out. Huang Mao let out a cold snort and grabbed the drink. When he saw the drink spill out again, he couldn't help but curse, you little devil, your hands are so cheap. You're looking for a fight. As soon as the word "de" fell, Huang Mao slapped Pan Zhaolong's head directly. Teacher Meng quickly protected Pan Zhaolong and warned, why are you doing this? You even beat a child. If you keep doing this, I'll call the police. This little ghost has a bad expression and is under attack. I'm educating him not to be so cheap in the future. Huang Mao sneered with disdain, you should report it to the police now if you have the ability. Teacher Meng stopped talking and just protected Pan Zhaolong. Seeing Teacher Meng's timid expression, Huang Mao smiled and reminded, Amon, you don't want this little ghost to be hurt, do you? Upon hearing the small day-style speech, Yang Suiyun, who passed by, couldn't help but stop and looked at Huang Mao. Ah, this damn yellow hair. Huang Mao was stunned, turned around, and stared at Yang Suiyun's annoying handsome face. He scolded, kid, don't meddle in your affairs, be careful not to even hit you. As the word "de" fell, Huang Mao suddenly raised his hand and vigorously fanned the handsome face in front of him. Yang Suiyun reached out his left hand, grabbed Huang Mao's wrist, looked down at him, and couldn't help but sigh. Crows also have yellow hair on their heads, all those who don't speak of martial arts deserve to die. Young Suiyun faintly felt a severe headache, as if he had been hit with another heavy stick. This is the original memory, the painful memory engraved in the bones. His expression gradually turned cold. Young Suiyun reached out his right hand and grabbed Huang Mao's collar, lifting him up directly. Then, like carrying a little chick, he dragged him towards the door. "Bastard, let go of me, otherwise you'll be dead." Huang Mao yelled while maintaining his figure in embarrassment. "Brother Yun." Chen Haonan and his companions regained their senses and quickly stood up. "By the way, there should be something wrong with that drink, don't drink it." Yang Suiyun suddenly remembered Huang Mao's way of doing things and turned around to remind him. Huang Mao's eyelids twitched. "I didn't expect this kid to understand so well. It seems that he's not a serious person. He can't judge a person by their appearance." "Kid, let go of him, Ma." Seeing Huang Mao's accomplice brandishing his fists and rushing towards him, Yang Suiyun took a quick step and extended his left hand like lightning, grabbing the other person's neck and letting him swallow the remaining words. When Wen Nian heard the commotion and ran out of the kitchen, he saw Yang Suiyun throwing the two people out of the door. "Get lost, if I see your yellow hair again, I will let you know what black humor is." Huang Mao lay on the ground, noticing that others were pointing and even laughing at him, and his expression instantly became sinister. Gritting his teeth tightly, Huang Mao remained silent and started the motorcycle, leaving without looking back. "Thank you. If it weren't for you, my son would have had that drink with ecstasy in it. It's my treat today, you can eat whatever you want, no problem." Looking at Chen Haonan, who looked like Xie Tingfeng, and then at Wen Nian, who looked like Zheng Yijian, Yang Suiyun couldn't help but find it interesting in his heart. Then he couldn't help but glance at Pan Zhaolong. Yang Suiyun waved his hand and smiled, "You don't need to be polite. Respecting the elderly and loving the young is a traditional virtue of our country." "Okay, pretty guy, that's impressive. Pretty guy, that's great. Well spoken, I like you." Looking at the three girls who were both student girls and little girls, Yang Suiyun shook his head slightly and could only show a polite smile. Wen Nian glanced at Chen Haonan and asked, "Are you still students?" Yang Suiyun shook his head and said, "I'm not, Haonan and the five of them are." Wen Nian and the others had a surprised expression in their eyes, but it turned out to be exactly the opposite of what they had guessed. "What do you know? Last year, Yungu already received the college admission notice, but he just didn't have the money to attend. If it weren't for—" Yang Suiyun waved his hand and interrupted Shanji's words, saying, "Shanha, there's no need to mention the past. Let's eat." Shanji and the others couldn't help but sigh. If it weren't for Yun Ji's father's accident, he would have been a student at the University of Hong Kong now. That's the University of Hong Kong. Beautiful looking, able to read, skilled in martial arts, how many people in the Shixiawai area don't know Yun Ji's name? Unfortunately, he was implicated by his father at a critical moment. Seeing the subtle atmosphere, Chen Haonan quickly ordered dishes. "Brother Long, with your reputation on the road, can you introduce us to the club?" Shanji suddenly spoke. Wen Nian stopped his pen and glanced at Yang Suiyun, then smiled and said, "You don't plan to read anymore." Shanji sat down with a bitter smile and said, "We're not like Yungu. We can both read and fight 5 at a time. Since Yungu left school and went to learn cooking from others, we've had no one to cover us up. We've either been bullied by grasshoppers or beaten by Liangkuan's subordinates. If it weren't for Yun Ji's help a few days ago, we would probably have been severely injured by the sand grasshoppers and crows from Dongxing. However, it actually implicated Yungu, not only causing him injury, but also causing him to lose the opportunity to continue learning cooking. The 5 of us don't want to be bullied anymore, nor do we want to implicate Brother Yun anymore, so we hope that Brother Long can help and become an introducer." Wen Nian smiled and looked at Chen Haonan, a young man who looked somewhat similar to him. He asked, and you, also want to join a club? Chen Haonan glanced at Yang Suiyun and nodded. Yuan smiled and patted Chen Haonan's shoulder, then turned to ask the 2 or 3 of them. After receiving a positive answer, he looked at Yang Suiyun and smiled, what about you? Do you agree with them joining the club? Everyone else coincidentally looked at Yang Suiyun. Yang Suiyun sighed inwardly. The destinies of these 5 people were different, but the outcome was not very good. If we don't care, our conscience won't pass. After all, they have been calling their original, Yungu, for almost 10 years. Memory is inherited, and emotions naturally do not completely disappear. In a while, I will open a store. Can you help me? Chen Haonan, the 5 of them, look at me and I look at you, their eyes full of surprise. Brother Yuan, where did you get the capital? Chen Haonan asked. The other 4 nodded. Yang Suiyun pointed to his head and smiled, of course it's earned. You don't have to ask so much, just come and help me. When the Gufuzi may seem majestic and elegant, but they don't have a good ending, it's better not to join the club. The mountain chicken hesitated to speak, but couldn't help but ask, if there were no clubs to cover it up, someone would definitely come and cause trouble. What should we do then? Chen Haonan nodded in agreement. Yang Suiyun sighed, this question is indeed difficult to answer because his current self is indeed weak. Chen Haonan gritted his teeth and said, Brother Yuan, we can't always implicate you. But even if we can't help you with things, we will still take care of your business in the future. The 4 mountain chickens nodded one after another. The atmosphere suddenly quieted down. Yang Suiyun thought for a moment and looked at Yuan, saying, the 5 of them are young and inexperienced. There are many things they don't understand, but you do. Yuan was stunned for a moment, then smiled and nodded. Seeing what Chen Haonan said, Yang Suiyun waved his hand directly and said solemnly, let's talk about joining the club later. At least wait until the Yuan Shao, filled round balls made of glutinous rice. Flour for Lantern Festival is over. Before that, no one should do anything stupid. Let's spend the Spring Festival honestly. Understand? Chen Haonan and others looked at each other, unsure of what to say for a moment. The mountain chicken let out a deep sigh, thinking that this time there was a chance to have the famous 9-striped dragon serve as an introducer, but to their surprise, it was an empty celebration. Oh, forget it, I never thought about seeking help from the 9-striped dragon, the mountain chicken thought silently. Yuan smiled and patted Chen Haonan's shoulder, asking, do you really want to be big brother? Is being big brother very prestigious? Chen Haonan's face turned slightly red and he hesitated for a while before finally choosing to remain silent. Yuan's eyes flashed with a hint of helplessness, but he could understand, after all, he was also similar back then. However, the expectation at this moment is precisely the regret at some point in the future. Yang Suiyun patted the heads of Chen Haonan and the mountain chicken, reminding them, if you turn a deaf ear to my words, don't greet me in the future. I can't bear it. Chen Haonan's face showed a hint of bitterness and he said, Brother Yuan, we don't mean that. The mountain chicken and others secretly complained in their hearts. Chen Haonan looked at each other, but in the end, Chen Haonan made a statement. Okay, Brother Yuan, we got it. Yuan clapped his palms and smiled, that's right. Dinner, I'll treat you today. When everything to be eaten and drunk was served, both sides became familiar. Although one promised not to talk too much about the past, he couldn't help but wake up Chen Haonan, letting them know which big shots couldn't afford it and which big shot had the most brutal leader. Looking at these 5 young boys, Yuan let out a slight sigh. Although he could fight, he wasn't crippled yet. Joining a club is not about treating guests to meals, drinking wine and making horses, it's about fighting and killing, it's about blocking the boss's sword, it's about working hard for the club. Chen Haonan and the others listened with their eyes lit up, as if they were not afraid, but rather somewhat yearning. Unconsciously, time was approaching 5.30. Yang Suiyun pointed to the clock and said, it's almost time. Today is New Year's Eve, go home early. Just as both sides stood up to bid farewell, a rapid roar came from outside. Everyone's faces slightly changed, it was the sound of a motorcycle engine. Someone is causing trouble. No, it's for revenge. Sure enough, Gu Puzi never leaves any overnight grudges, and most of them end on the same day. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Ancient Puzzlers Difficult to End Well. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Ancient Puzzlers Difficult to End Well, get out, weakling, we see you. If you have the courage to act recklessly, why don't you dare to come out? Get out and hit the street. Listening to the screams and harsh clanging of steel pipes outside, young Suiyun found that his mood was getting worse and his anger was getting stronger. Young Suiyun couldn't help but feel surprised. In his previous life, he was already in his 30s. Although his life experience was not particularly rich, he had encountered good, bad, frustrating things, and should not easily get angry. What kind of person were you in your previous life? A handsome young man who conquers others with virtue and is unparalleled in benevolence and righteousness. But now, irritable, impulsive, as if the whole person has turned into an explosive bucket. This feeling is like a king being provoked, while the noisy ants have been hiding inside the turtle shell. So the king only wants to smash the turtle shell and crush the ants, otherwise his heart will be filled with panic and people will explode with anger. Young Suiyun couldn't understand why he had reached this point, and where exactly was the problem. Seeing young Suiyun's eyebrows furrowed and his expression changing, when Nguyen patted his shoulder and smiled, I also have a share in this matter. Let me take a look first. The others didn't speak, but nodded slightly in agreement. Young Suiyun took a deep breath, waved his hand, and said with a smile, when the sky falls, it will be borne by a tall person first. Have you never heard of this sentence? Before the words could be finished, the person strode outwards. Upon seeing young Suiyun come out, Huang Mao immediately pointed at him and said, "Big brother, that's this kid." The big brother, wearing colored glasses and a goatee, looked at the newcomer and sneered, shouting, "Kid, what are you? Where did you end up?" Dressed in plain clothes, with a slim figure and a particularly handsome appearance, it looks like a bullying ant. Ha! Young Suiyun exhaled a mouthful of turbid air, and Huang Mao's elder brother was also Huang Mao. Dry, yellow hair is indeed synonymous with evil. Brother Huang Mao spat and pointed at the frail guy in front of him who didn't even grow hair, cursing, "Poker, who gave you the courage to hit my person? Mad, don't sell duck but, how dare you come here and act wild?" The ancient troublemaker next to him didn't say much nonsense, just tapped on the steel pipe in his hand. When Nguyen asked Chen Haonan and a few others to stand at the door, and then walked behind Yang Suiyun. Glancing at the few yellow hairs in front of him, Yang Suiyun looked at one of them and said with a smile, "Do you remember? I once said, as long as I see your yellow hair again, I'll let you know what black humor is." Huang Mao instinctively looked at his younger brother and then glared at Yang Suiyun, spraying, "Grass mud horse, black your head, humorous you're a street thug. Do you like teaching people? Well, let me teach you what it means to." At this moment, everyone saw that Yang Suiyun suddenly extended his hands, like catching a duck, and directly grabbed the necks of Huang Mao and the others. Yang Suiyun suddenly pulled and with a loud bang, the two of them collided with the iron fence. Seeing the fence tremble a few times from being hit, everyone's eyelids couldn't help but jump, thinking to themselves that it must be very painful. Especially the crotch, "I hope you're okay." Young Suiyun grinned and revealed his neat and pretty white teeth, saying, "I can't believe you're tough guys. You don't feel any pain at all. If it hurts, you'll definitely shout out loud, right?" The two of them trembled and shouted in their hearts, "Bastard, if you have the ability, let go of your hand and we'll cry for you." Yang Suiyun pushed the two of them back and said softly, "Don't be afraid. After realizing that their bodies were no longer in contact with the iron fence, the two breathed a sigh of relief, but then found that their feet had left the ground again. Suffering from suffocation, unable to catch their breath, their faces turned red. At this moment, the painful two felt death. With another bang, the two of them collided fiercely with the iron fence again. Pain, especially in the lower body, especially in the crotch, but both of them were unable to roar out this piercing pain. Wen Nuyin's face showed a surprised expression, while the eyes of the ancient perplexities showed a hint of shock. Young Suiyun's strength is beyond everyone's imagination. Feet off the ground, lower body in contact with the iron fence and hard steel, neck tightly pinched, the yellow-haired duo felt like they were about to hang up. Just as the two of them felt hopeless, Yang Suiyun spoke again. Did you experience the feeling of being black in front of you? You all know black humor, but you were defeated by your black humor. After speaking, Yang Suiyun suddenly took the two of them off the plane. When the two of them collided with the motorcycle, the ancient troublemakers finally came to their senses. Discovering that the eldest and the second had ugly faces, tears and saliva flowed down their faces. The younger brothers trembled in their hearts and silently swallowed the harsh words from their hearts. Zhonggu Puzi. It's not that we're cowardly, let alone afraid to speak harshly, but that we need to first care about the safety of the boss. Yang Suiyun stepped over the iron fence and walked step by step towards the two of them, ignoring the many ancient troublemakers, as if strolling leisurely in the courtyard. Everyone trembled, as if they had transformed into a sheep, while Yang Suiyun was a fierce tiger. Seeing Yang Suiyun suddenly stop, everyone's nerves couldn't help but tighten. The person standing in front of Yang Suiyun couldn't help but look up and saw a pair of eyes that were not angry or intimidating. Yang Suiyun raised his right hand and slapped the yellow hair in front of him. Grass, dye your hair yellow and pretend to be a foreign devil. Is it very powerful? Today's New Year's Eve, one by one, they didn't go home early and instead followed the boss out to pretend to be tough guys and show off their authority. Who gave you the courage? A head of yellow hair. Speaking of this, Yang Suiyun looked at a mischievous young man with a low head and fierce eyes, sneered, and lightning struck. After grabbing the other person's collar, he threw him away like a bowling ball. In the blink of an eye, several people were lying on the ground, grinning in pain. Oh, weak and vulnerable, just like you sand eagles, besides blocking the boss's sword and acting as scapegoats, what else can you do? A dignified person who doesn't do it must be a foolish and crazy dog. Yang Suiyun looked down at the ancient troublemakers and sneered, come on, since you're all crazy dogs, come bite me. You, and you, aren't you all holding steel pipes? What are you afraid of? Rush over. The ancient confused children had an unpleasant expression, but they dared not speak and could only grit their teeth and keep their mouths closed. A group of cowards, weaklings, with the ability to rush over. I promise not to kill you, but instead, I will check your leg carefully. Yang Suiyun spread out his hand and smiled, as a curious person, on this festive New Year's Eve, you should have a broken leg meal. Isn't this a normal and reasonable thing to do? 10 ancient troublemakers, 8 street thugs, they're talking about you. Everyone was very quiet, and those who didn't know thought Yang Suiyun was holding a mobilization meeting. At this moment, another group of people and horses appeared on both sides of the street. I have long hair from Zhulong, who dares to touch our dragon brother. I am Zhulong Saning, who dares to touch our dragon brother. Chen Haonan's 5 faces immediately showed an expression of envy. With so many young brothers, it's so cool. It's a bunker. Upon noticing the strange expressions in everyone's eyes, Wen Nuyin's lips twitched and a hint of embarrassment flashed across his face. Long Hair walked up to Wen Nuyin and said with concern, Brother Long, are you okay? The eagle scanned the people and horses on the other side of the fence and roared, Pouch it your old brewer, where are you guys? How dare you come here and act wild? No one spoke up because qualified people were sitting on the road and regaining their senses. I'm fine, Wen Nuyen sighed and looked at young Suiyun, saying, Suiyun, today is New Year's Eve, and tomorrow is the first day of the Lunar New Year. Let's just settle things like this. Upon hearing these words, the people on the side of Huang Mao breathed a sigh of relief. Seeing Yang Suiyun not speaking, many people couldn't help but look at him. Yang Suiyun took a few deep breaths, suppressed his anger, swept around, and then clicked 3 points, saying, leave these 3 cars behind and go to the Shek Kip Mei public housing estate tomorrow morning to pick them up. The cars are left at the football field, you can get out. Everyone felt a wave of resentment in their hearts. If they didn't choose, they would choose the best 3 sports car models. Where's the key? How can we return it to us? Yang Suiyun coldly glanced at the speaker, took a big step forward, and then slapped him. With a loud bang, the yellow-haired speaker was directly fanned away. Fortunately, Yang Suiyun showed mercy and did not take out his teeth. Are you clear-headed? Is there only one key to a motorcycle? If you don't have a brain, don't talk and be a mute dog. At this moment, Huang Mao and the boss finally regained their strength and were able to stand up. Yang Suiyun glanced at the 2 of them and found that their anger had not significantly increased. He couldn't help but speculate that 9 cows and 2 tigers should not be used casually. Once used, not only would the whole person become irritable and impulsive, but their stomachs would also easily become hungry. Yes, Yang Suiyun, who had just finished eating, found himself hungry again. The problem of hunger is easy to solve, but how can the negative emotions of 9 cows and 2 tigers be eliminated? Yang Suiyun walked towards the leader with yellow hair, causing the latter's face to turn white in sweat from behind, but he dared not move around. Yang Suiyun patted the opponent's yellow hair and said with a smile, my name is Yang Suiyun. I live in Shek Kip Mei public housing estate. We welcome you to retaliate. Remember to bring more people, more weapons, and preferably a few guns. The yellow-haired boss felt a bit weak in his legs and couldn't help feeling aggrieved in his heart. I was just arrogant, not intellectually disabled, and didn't want to die. Sure enough, Yang Suiyun's next words made people want to cry. By the way, remember to contact the crematorium and book a cemetery before starting. The yellow-haired leader and his group left calmly. Long-haired walked up to Wen Nuyen and asked in a low voice, Brother Long, who is that handsome guy? De Ing also exclaimed curiously, are you a newly recruited little brother? Wen Nuyen glanced at the 2 of them and said, friends who just met, don't bother yourself. He doesn't like to hang out in clubs. Yes, Wen Nuyen feels that Yang Suiyun is a bit strange. He seems to have a strong aversion to ancient troublemakers. Once he encounters someone who doesn't like him, he will get angry and take action, and he may even resort to violence. Long Hair and the Eagle exchanged a glance, unable to resist shaking their heads slightly. Okay, I'll take note of it, the 2 of them said one after another. At this moment, a voice sounded from behind the 3 of them. Long-haired brother, Big Eagle brother, nice to meet you all. My name is Mountain Chicken, and this is my brother Chen Haonan and Big Tianer. Long Hair and Big Eagle were both stunned for a moment, but still gave a face-saving greeting. Wen Nuyen looked at the pleasing expression on the Mountain Chicken's face and couldn't help but shake his head slightly, but when he remembered the past, he couldn't help but let out a deep sigh. Long Hair thought for a moment, feeling somewhat uncertain, and asked, Shanji, do you want to join us? As the Mountain Chicken was about to speak, it noticed Yang Suiyun cleanly crossing the iron fence and looking at him with a smile on his face. The Mountain Chicken swallowed its saliva and didn't know how to speak for a moment, as if being pinched by someone and losing the ability to speak. You are Longa's friends, we must say hello and get to know each other, Chen Haonan quickly made a round. Unexpectedly, Yungu has become stronger again. Chen Haonan and the 5 of them feel a lot of pressure. It seems that the matter of worshipping the dock can only be discussed after the spring festival. Long Hair looked at Wen Nuyen and asked, Brother Long, do you need to take care of them? When Nguyen glanced at Chen Haonan and was about to speak when a voice gave a response. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Fate is hard to change. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Fate is hard to change. If they join the club, they don't need too much care from you. They can handle it. If they don't join, please take care of them. Long Hair turned around and looked at young Suiyun, then at the five of Chen Haonan. After a moment of thought, he said, "You don't need to be so troublesome, why don't you just join us and I'll take care of them myself." Sanning repeatedly said, "You can also join us. We are all loyal, and Long Goat can testify to this. There's a play, this time there's a club covering it." Chen Haonan and the five of them were overjoyed, their expressions instantly changing from cloudy to sunny. "Even if it doesn't work out today, can't we contact again in a few days?" Looking at the face with long hair that resembled Dugo, Suiyun really wanted to punch his dog head with a punch. This guy is just a big idiot. But young Suiyun is rational, convincing people with virtue, and clearly distinguishing between kindness and resentment. Young Suiyun looked at Long Hair and Three Eagles and asked with a smile on his face, "They joined your club. What do you want to give them?" Without waiting for them to answer, young Suiyun turned his head to look at Chen Haonan and asked loudly, "What can you gain after joining the club?" Everyone was stunned, not knowing why young Suiyun had such a big reaction. Young Suiyun sneered, "Do you like joining a club, sending coffins, handcuffs, and a crematorium in one go?" The faces of everyone couldn't help but change, and their hearts were quite unhappy. "Who are you old enough to eat at your house? Why bother so much? Are all the people who join the club bad people?" If it weren't for Long Ge's sake, Long Hair and Sanning really wanted to teach young Suiyun a lesson. Remember, after the Yuan Shao, filled round balls made of glutinous rice. Flour for Lantern Festival, you can do as you like. I won't meddle any more. Seeing young Suiyun's serious face and sharp eyes, everyone chose to remain silent. "Everyone. You are a handsome guy, you can sing a solo performance." When Promise coughed softly and broke the silence. "Long Hair, you are not allowed to accept people before the Yuan Shao, filled round balls made of glutinous rice. Flour for Lantern Festival has passed, and you are free afterwards." In theory, Wen Nguyen shouldn't care so much, but he owes young Suiyun a favor, and the more he looks at Chen Haonan, the more he feels that both sides are destined. After careful consideration, let's make a statement. After scanning around, young Suiyun felt that his art style was not quite right, as if it didn't match the current scene and seemed out of place. My stomach was hungry, but young Suiyun didn't want to walk into the Jiulong ice room again. He said to Chen Haonan and his five companions, "It's getting late. Let's go. Long Gu, Kong Gu, Teacher Meng, Zhao Long, goodbye." After young Suiyun finished speaking, he turned around and walked towards the motorcycle. Chen Haonan and the others couldn't help but sigh, but still bid farewell to the crowd. The mountain chicken suddenly stopped and whispered a question to Chang. After receiving an answer, it took big steps to follow. Young Suiyun naturally noticed the little movements of the mountain chicken, but didn't say anything more. He could only sigh, is it really difficult to change fate? Perhaps Chen Haonan and Hong Xing's big beat missed out, but now there are Kowloon Long Hair and Kowloon Three Eagles. Can these five people only belong to a club? Young Suiyun sighed deeply, even if he was hanging on a wall, he could only change the small trend, and the big trend was irreversible. No, actually there aren't many small trends that can be changed. Watching young Suiyun leave, Long Hair let out a cold snort, then turned to look at Wen Nguyen and said solemnly, "Brother Long, let's follow you again." Wen Nguyen just smiled and shook his head. De Ing also made a serious statement and said, "Brother Long, we still want to follow you." Wen Nguyen put away his smile and said word for word, "I said, you don't need to follow me. I have already exited." Long Hair and Three Eagles are speechless. At that moment, Wen Nuyen suddenly understood why young Suiyun was so angry just now. With what? With what? Am I not clear enough? Please leave. Seeing Long Ji's angry expression, San Ing and Long Hair didn't say much and left in silence. Kong patted Wen Nuyen's shoulder, raised his chin, and said, "That's all for today. You can see off Teacher Meng." Wen Nuyen breathed a sigh of relief and nodded. When young Suiyun and his group returned to the familiar football field, it was already dark. "The car is parked here, give me the key." After receiving the car keys, young Suiyun waved his hand to the five of them and said, "Hurry back, your family is waiting for you." "Brother Yun, let's go then." 5 minutes later, young Suiyun's figure disappeared into the darkness, along with those 3 motorcycles. Upon returning home, young Suiyun took out a roasted duck, a roasted goose, and 3 cans of beer. While eating and reminiscing about what happened this afternoon, Ong Suiyun felt that he had done his utmost. If he had opened a shop, Chen Haonan and the 5 of them would still refuse to come over and help him. He was determined to join the club, so he could only turn a blind eye to it. Regarding the 9-striped dragon, young Suiyun remembered that he was ultimately stabbed to death, and the culprit was instructed by Ling Huchong. "Do you want to remind him?" Young Suiyun took a bite of the goose leg and couldn't help but exclaim in admiration, it was delicious. But as soon as young Suiyun thought that he didn't have much money left, he couldn't help feeling dizzy and seemed to have gone to the crime scene. "Coincidentally, we have transportation available. Let's go explore the situation tomorrow." The next morning, young Suiyun went to a hardware store and bought a wooden handle axe, a 10-meter-long rope, a pair of gloves, and a powerful flashlight. Lu Yaozu's mansion is located in Happy Valley, and young Suiyun feels that he used to pay New Year's greetings. As a wealthy man, you can't help but give red envelopes, right? Anyway, I don't want the red envelope anymore. I just want the anonymous bond. Anyway, it's just a document, and it's not worth a few cents to sell it by the weight. At the thought of being so understanding, young Suiyun was moved to tears. Happy Valley, rich district. Although today is the first day of the Lunar New Year, the wealthy district is not bustling and lacks a bit of excitement. With a little thought, as a tabloid reporter, young Suiyun locked the location of Lu's house. As night falls, the lot NO99DD 387 mansion is brightly lit both inside and outside. Standing under a big tree, young Suiyun discovered that there were actually quite a few people in the mansion. What an ungrateful dog tycoon. Lu Yaozu, this ruthless person, dares to celebrate the spring festival in a mansion. Aren't you afraid that his wife's ghost will come to him? Oh, wolf heart dog lung, then it's okay. When will the boss move to the casino? Come on, just these few days. Who will stay to see the house then? That depends on the boss's intentions. Just as he was about to climb over the wall, young Suiyun heard voices and quickly realized that they were Lu Yaozu's bodyguards. How could the villain's minions not have weapons? It's a bit difficult. Difficult to handle. Then don't do it, just lift the table. Young Suiyun doesn't plan to turn around and leave. He needs to work hard and won't leave until he gets the bonds. The wall was not high, and young Suiyun could see inside by stepping on it. Seeing the 2 bodyguards walking towards the potted tree, he followed them lightly. The 2 bodyguards were chatting excitedly when they suddenly noticed a head wearing a demon mask emerging from the bushes, especially those bright big eyes staring straight at them, both startled. Grass, dare to scare people, kill him. Park Street, stand still. Young Suiyun sneered and spat at the 2 of them. Not much harm, extremely insulting. Following the casino tycoon, they had never seen any scenes before, let alone carrying guns. The 2 of them had never experienced such anger and immediately rushed over. Just as the 2 were pulling apart the branches, they suddenly noticed a pair of gloved hands passing through the bushes and grabbing their own tie. The next second, the 2 of them felt like they were all flying. Suddenly pulling the two of them over and getting them stuck in the middle of the potted tree, Suiyun struck them on the chin like lightning. After knocking the two unconscious, Suiyun pulled them to the dark and began to touch the corpses. Not to mention, I found something good, 2 unknown models of pistols, 2 magazines, and 2 wallets. After some thought, Suiyun took off their suits, leather shoes, and belts again. After tying hands and feet and sealing the mouth with tape, Suiyun put on a suit, but found that it was a bit small. The height of the 2 bodyguards did not reach 180 centimeters, while Suiyun's height was 188 centimeters. Suiyun took a deep breath and looked at the entrance of the mansion. Hanging on the wall, there will be a blue sky. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Bond Acquisition. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Bond Acquisition. Following the planned route, Suiyun quickly found the electricity meter, took out a chair, equipped it with a wooden handle axe, and stood on the chair with a feeling of unease. Will there be an electric shock? Will it crash into the street and lead to a grand finale? Suiyun gritted his teeth and swung his Leviathan's axe fiercely towards the electric wire, just like Lord Kuei. With only a faint sound, in the next moment, the brightly lit mansion fell into darkness. Lu Yaozu and Meng Na were eating at a restaurant, while planning a trip somewhere. As they were chatting and eating, they suddenly realized that the room was completely dark. Meng Na asked in confusion, "Is there a power outage?" "This is a wealthy area, how could there be a power outage?" "If there were a power outage here, wouldn't Hong Kong be plunged into darkness?" Lu Yaozu's face suddenly became gloomy and he shouted, "Sister Wu, go check it out, right away." "Okay, young master." Wu Jia was startled and quickly replied, then ran outside. Meng Na looked at the pitch-black room and asked, "Do you want to go out and take a look?" Lu Yaozu waved his hand, got up and walked to the window, saying, "The street lights outside are still on. It's probably something that's broken. The people below can handle it." At this moment, Lu Yaozu felt a bit uneasy, but he didn't worry either. The bodyguards had guns in their hands and there have been no abnormal situations so far, indicating that the problem should be in the circuit. Looking at the dimly lit restaurant, Lu Yaozu felt that he needed to prepare some backup lighting energy in the future to avoid encountering such a situation again and staying in place like a fool. Upon hearing the footsteps, Suiyun took a deep breath and said, "There's a burnt smell. It seems like there's something wrong with the electricity meter. Did you bring a flashlight or candle over?" Wu and her companions were stunned and realized that she had really come over without bringing any lighting tools. "What are you still waiting for the boss to scold us? Hurry up and find the lighting tools, and then have someone contact the property management company." Wu Jia and the others didn't have time to carefully distinguish whether the speaker was the young master's bodyguard, so they quickly turned around and went to work. The man, wearing a suit, has a tall figure and indeed looks like a bodyguard. It's not surprising that Sister Wu and others were negligent. Lu Yaozu is not a kind person. If he doesn't do things well and angers him, not only will he be scolded, but there is also a high possibility of being fired. Suiyun followed silently. "Wu Jia, what's the problem?" Sister Wu quickly explained the situation. Lu Yaozu waved his hand and asked Wu Jia and the others to do things quickly. On the first day of the Lunar New Year, there was actually a circuit malfunction. What an unlucky Tamato. Lu Yaozu cursed and immediately sat down on the sofa. "Forget it, don't be angry, there will be people from the property management company to handle it anyway," Meng Na comforted. Suiyun quietly followed behind Wu Jia, and after leaving Lu Yaozu's sight, he walked directly to the other side. Quickly, Suiyun found the glass box used to raise lizards. Grasping the flashlight, Suiyun lifted the glass cover and collected the storage space provided by the system. With one hand, he grabbed the lizard's neck and finally took away the glass box along with the iron bracket below. Walking to the window, Suiyun fiercely threw the lizard out. Just as young Suiyun was about to jump from the window onto the lawn outside, his brow furrowed and he thought to himself that he had already arrived. Why didn't he just come and grab a chance? If he can't find something good, Yang Suiyun plans to take away the color TV, refrigerator, and even Lu Yaozu's car. For casino owners like Lu Yaozu, there is no need to talk about benevolence, righteousness, and morality. Yang Suiyun turned around and walked towards the second floor. Half an hour later, the property management company finally resolved the issue. When Lu Yaozu saw the big house become brightly lit again, a smile finally appeared on his face. Wu Jia and several others couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief upon seeing the situation. Eat, eat. Lu Yaozu greeted Meng Na and sat down at the dining table again. Wu glanced at the dining table and quickly said, "Young master, why don't we heat up the dishes a few more minutes?" Lu Yaozu thought for a moment and then nodded. The next morning, while cleaning the house, Wu and her companions noticed something was wrong. Wu Jia carefully checked around and asked with some uncertainty, "I remember there was a pet glass box here that kept the young master's lizard. Do you remember?" A servant nodded and said, "I remember it was indeed so." Another servant frowned and said, "But where has the glass box gone?" Everyone was puzzled. There were no traces on the floor, as if there had never been a pet glass box placed here. But everyone has an impression, did they remember correctly? Just as Wu and her companions were confused, two bodyguards walked over. "Wu Jia, have you seen Zhang San and Li Si?" Wu Jia shook her head slightly and said, "I didn't see it, but they were still there when there was a power outage last night." Wu Jia believes that the young Suiyun she met last night was one of them. The two of them felt something was wrong. They couldn't have left their posts without permission because no one could bear the boss's anger. "Wu Jia, could you please search around the house? I suspect they have an accident." Wu and her companions looked at each other, but still nodded. Not long after, Zhang San and Li Si were found, surrounded by 4 potted trees. If it weren't for a deliberate search, it would really be difficult to find them. A few minutes later, in the living room, Lu Yaozu, with a gloomy expression, looked at Zhang San and Li Si, who were short of clothes and shoes, and without saying a word, gave each of them a slap. "Waste, come on, what exactly happened?" Zhang San and Li Si, who were feeling a bit lethargic, exchanged a glance and recounted last night's events one after another. "My subordinate was knocked unconscious by someone, and then the circuit malfunctioned." Lu Yaozu secretly said something was wrong and immediately ordered, Go, see what's missing in the house." Everyone quickly nodded. Lu Yaozu looked at the second floor and thought to himself, "The safe won't be opened, will it?" Entering the study, Lu Yaozu did not see the safe opened, only because the safe was missing. That bulky safe has gone missing. Sleeping in a trough, impossible, absolutely impossible. Lu Yaozu felt a bit overwhelmed, and it would take at least 3 strong people to lift the safe, and it was even more impossible to move it under everyone's noses. Lu Yaozu rubbed his slightly swollen and painful head, feeling something strange and eerie happening. Boss Lu is extremely confused. Even if the servants and bodyguards are blind and deaf, what about himself? Is there an inner ghost? Was he drugged with sleeping pills? Half an hour later, everyone stood in front of Lu Yaozu and reported the results. The more you listen, the more mysterious it becomes, and the more you listen, the more outrageous it becomes. Lu Yaozu looked bewildered and asked, "Are you sure?" "It's just that a glass pet box, along with the bracket and lizard, is missing." Sister Wu nodded one after another. Lu Yaozu smiled angrily and cursed, "The grass is numb. It's just an ordinary lizard, and it's not a precious species. Who would come here to steal it when they're full?" Slowly looking around, Mr. Lu stared coldly at everyone and asked, "What were you doing all day yesterday? Who entered my study?" Boss Lu is very angry now. If he knew about Liang Kuan's way of venting his anger, well, even in front of everyone, Boss Lu wouldn't be able to do it. Do you scumbags know that the safe not only contains cash, gold, and watches, but also a special gift you prepared for a key figure? A customized gold-plated version of the Desert Eagle. Mr. Lu gritted his teeth and thought. Lu Yaozu originally planned to give the gilded version of the Desert Eagle to Long Wu, who was the bodyguard and brother of the god of gamblers. As long as we can intersect with the new gambling god, the casino business will definitely thrive. Because the gold-plated version of the Desert Eagle is different from the regular version, the gold-plated version has a 0.44 caliber and polygonal rifling. You should know that it wasn't until 1985 that the rifling of Desert Eagle was changed to polygons to improve accuracy. The Desert Eagle with a caliber of 0.44 was not officially launched until 1986. It was not only excellent, but also the first semi-automatic large-caliber handgun with a caliber of 0.44. The gift is gone, and the chance of meeting the god of gamblers is greatly reduced. The more Mr. Lu thinks, the more angry he becomes, and his lungs are about to explode. If Mr. Lu were to know that the anonymous bonds worth 300 million yuan were inside the glass box, he would probably be so angry that he would take off in place. Seeing Lu Yaozu's cannibalistic expression, everyone felt a chill in their backs and explained in detail their whereabouts from yesterday. They even went to the restroom several times, telling how long they had been on each trip. As he listened further, Lu Yaozu's eyebrows twisted even more. Surprisingly, these people in front of him had no time to commit the crime. Lu Yaozu instinctively looked at Meng Na, who was taken aback and quickly reminded, "We were all together yesterday. Did you forget?" With a sudden leap of eyelids, Mr. Lu knew he was angry and confused. Lu Yaozu took a deep breath, calmed himself down for a moment, pondered for a moment, and asked, "Have there been any major thieves born on the road recently?" Everyone remained silent. "Boss, there has been news of valuable items being stolen recently, but the stolen items are all artworks, such as world-famous paintings." Lu Yaozu looked at Zhang San and asked, "Do you know who did it?" Zhang San shook his head and said, "We haven't solved the case yet, but we can inquire with the people on the road. Those people have better information." Lu Yaozu pointed to Zhang San and Li Si and said, "You come and handle this matter. If you can't handle it well, don't come back. Die outside." Their hearts trembled, but they quickly nodded. After thinking for a moment, Wu Jia asked, "Young master, do you want to report to the police?" Lu Yaozu thought for a moment and said, report it immediately. Last time it was reported as a burglary and murder, and this time it was a burglary. Lu Yaozu felt that these two cases could be merged together, so that the suspicion of killing his wife was almost zero. Just as Lu Yaozu was having a headache over the theft of a safe, young Suiyun was giggling foolishly at the 300 million yuan bond. "Not only do we give away cheats, but we also give away huge sums of money. God treats me well, Yang. I, Yang, swear to the heavens that I will abide by the principle of conquering others with virtue in this life and become a sunny and handsome person." Wiping away the drool from the corners of his mouth, Yang Suiyun looked at the bulky and sturdy safe and couldn't help but fall into contemplation. What good thing is inside? Is there any evidence of Lu Yaozu's crime? For a moment, Yang Suiyun's heart was filled with curiosity and anticipation. Just how did the safe break? End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Lawyers not only need to be professional, but also. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Lawyers not only need to be professional, but also the next day, it took Yang Suiyun half a day to find a way to open the box and cut it with welding. For this, Yang Suiyun spent 500 Hong Kong dollars and did it himself, without having the welding master present. When the iron door was dismantled and he saw what was inside, Yang Suiyun immediately reacted and swallowed several mouthfuls of saliva as he saw the black silk beauty with protruding front and protruding long legs. Bundles of Hong Kong dollars are dazzling and breathless, with each note having a face value of 1,000 yuan. A bundle of Hong Kong dollars is worth 100,000 Hong Kong dollars, right? Young Suiyun took a deep breath, looked intoxicated, and murmured to himself, "This is the taste of money. Have you played it well?" Young Suiyun roughly scanned and felt that there should be 5 million Hong Kong dollars in the safe. In addition to Hong Kong dollars, there are also a few pieces of gold and several famous watches, but none of them are what Yang Suiyun is most interested in. There is actually a stylish small suitcase on the bottom layer of the safe, but there is no lock. Is there evidence of Lu Yaozu's crime inside? After taking it out and weighing it, Yang Suiyun found it quite heavy. He couldn't help but wonder, shouldn't it be paper inside? With a snap, Yang Suiyun opened the buckle, and the next second, 2 golden pistols came into view. Yang Suiyun picked up the instruction manual and saw that it was all in English. However, when he saw the most eye-catching Desert Eagle, he suddenly realized that the 2 in front of him were the famous Desert Eagles, and they were also gold-plated versions. Yang Suiyun counted again and found that there were actually 400 bullets. Isn't Lu Yaozu running a casino? What are you hiding Desert Eagles for? For collecting. Yang Suiyun was puzzled and couldn't help but shake his head. If it was for collection, what would it be with so many bullets? Unfortunately, Yang Suiyun was not familiar with the history of the Desert Eagle, otherwise he would have known that the gilded version of the Desert Eagle in front of him was customized, and the bullets naturally had to be made separately, otherwise it would be difficult to buy suitable bullets. 5 million cash, 10 gold bars, 5 luxury watches, 2 gold-plated versions of the Desert Eagle, 400 bullets, 2 unknown models of pistols, actually Black Star pistols, commonly known as Big Black Star, 2 magazines, a total of 14 bullets, 2 wallets, these are Yang Suiyun's big gains. Harvesting Lu Yaozu's wool makes people feel very naughty. Glancing at the very bulky and hard all-metal safe, Yang Suiyun's eyes lit up. This thing is very good, not only can be used to smash things, but also can be used as an obstacle. It is a must-have for those who want to fight in. After patting his chest and suppressing his excitement, Yang Suiyun thought for a moment and felt that he needed to start his own company first, otherwise Raspberry Pi and the game would not be easy to play. In capitalist countries, what talents are essential for a force? Lawyers, of course, are lawyers. Whether it's a company or a gang, they all have their own lawyers, even a team of lawyers. Those who have watched Golden Lawyer and Pretty Lawyer will deeply feel how important a powerful lawyer team is. What, you haven't watched it yet? What did you watch? This Yang Suiyun tapped on the desktop and found it quite troublesome to recruit or find people in the 1980s. In the newspaper. Too long, tossing and turning, not suitable. Headhunters. I feel a bit too cautious, think about it again. After thinking about it for a while, Yang Suiyun sighed and said that he could only go to various law firms in person. But now it's the Spring Festival, and there's still time to plan slowly. We can take action in a few days. As Yang Suiyun's mind turned again, a smile appeared in his eyes. A man with a gun is the best, and many men love to play with guns. Should he find some time to practice shooting? Silently recording the practice of shooting in his diary, Yang Suiyun planned to go to the shooting gallery to play when the main task was done. In the next few days, Yang Suiyun spent most of his time at home either planning or reading books and newspapers. Of course, exercise is essential and must be done daily. During this period, Chen, Haonan and 5 others came to visit and talked about the topic of the 3 motorcycles being stolen. They also brought Wen Nguyen's greetings, allowing time to go to the store and sit down. Yang Suiyun could only shake his head secretly for the careful consideration of the 5 people. Young and energetic, loves to be cool, and shows off his authority. If he doesn't bump into the south wall, the younger generation won't easily turn back. However, Yang Suiyun has a good impression of the promise of the prodigal son turning back, and he can save him. I vaguely remember the ending of the movie, Nine-Striped Dragon, when Nguyen died quite suffocating, but was actually stabbed to death by a little thug. Okay, This is a cheesy, speechless ending to highlight the theme. You always have to pay back when you come out. On this day, various industries officially started construction, and Yang Suiyun walked out with information. A certain law firm. When the front desk saw Yang Suiyun, it was a bright and dazzling young man. As for the ordinary clothes on the handsome guy's body, they were directly ignored by the front desk. After all, taking off clothes can make a difference. Of course, some people value people, while others value clothing. The front desk smiled sweetly and asked, "Hello sir, may I help you?" Yang Suiyun nodded secretly, and with this professional competence, he threw away the 800 streets of little fresh meat and little flour in the future. "I want to start a company, sell a bond, and register a patent in various countries, so I would like to consult your firm." Although the front desk still maintained a smile, there was still a hint of unease in their eyes. "Okay, please wait a moment, I will contact the lawyer for you." Soon, Yang Suiyun met the lawyer. After listening to the request, the lawyer couldn't help but seriously look at Yang Suiyun. He couldn't believe that the young man in front of him had so much to do, not limited to Hong Kong, but also wanted to spread to the whole of Asia, and even to the world. The lawyer secretly said that things are not good, such as filing a lawsuit, starting a company, issuing bonds, and registering patents in Hong Kong. These things can all be done by the law firm, but once it involves international business, the law firm cannot handle them. By the way, I still need to go back to mainland China to start a company and also need legal assistance. The lawyer's eyebrows twisted into a Chinese character, and he remained silent for a long time before speaking. "Mr. Yang, I suggest that you first establish a foothold on Hong Kong Island. As for foreign countries, there is no need to worry. The mainland market is not because I look down on mainland people. Their consumption ability is too low, so the market will naturally not be too big. It is not too late to enter the mainland again in 10 years. Mr. Yang, you are a young and talented person who is flexible in your work, but ultimately lacks some experience. It is better to be steady and steady. Once you occupy the Hong Kong market, then concentrate your efforts on capturing foreign markets, which is the most suitable business strategy for you." Yang Suiyun nodded. Upon seeing this, the lawyer's eyes flashed with a hint of pride, feeling that young people were just easy to deceive. Yang Suiyun smiled and said, "If I want to enter both foreign and domestic markets, can you provide support? You're such a stunned person. You've been talking for a while, it's in vain." The lawyer muttered inwardly, but his expression remained unchanged, maintaining a professional smile. "Based on my over a decade of work experience, I would like to solemnly suggest that a new company should prioritize stability and not rush forward. If the mall is like a battlefield, I hope Mr. Yang will carefully consider it." Yang Suiyun nodded again and then spoke, "All right, I'll consider it when I go back. Can you give me a business card?" The lawyer's face trembled slightly and he smiled, "So I'm looking forward to Mr. Yang's good news." After speaking, he handed over his business card. After walking downstairs, Yang Suiyun threw the business card directly into the trash can. "Oh, without diamond, you still want to do porcelain work." Next, Yang Suiyun visited two small but also considerable law firms, but in the end, they did not agree to cooperate. Yang Suiyun frowned and said, "Can't the mainland and international markets work simultaneously? Do we really have to go to a large law firm?" Yang Suiyun looked at the famous watch in his hand and found that time was running out, so he could only visit another family. Looking at the law firm in front of him, Yang Suiyun secretly said, "If it doesn't work, then find a bigger one. Time is precious, at best spend more money." Just as Yang Suiyun stepped into the office, a person came towards him, a very discerning person. Duan, very black, very bright, very soft. Yang Suiyun directly reached out to stop the other party and smiled, saying, "May I ask if you are a lawyer from this law firm?" Big Nose hesitated for a moment and quickly replied, "Yes, but my name is Yang Suiyun." Yang Suiyun smiled and asked, may I ask your surname? Long John, just call me Jackie. Young Suiyun frowned for a moment, thought about it for a while, then relaxed his brows and asked, do you have two good brothers, one named Abeo and the other named Abio? Long John nodded and shook his head again, saying, there are two good brothers, one named Abio, but the other named Ahong. Huang Feihong. Long John showed a surprised expression and smiled, do you know him? Yang Suiyun chuckled and said, I've heard of him. It's said that although he's a bit overweight, he's very agile. Ah Long, Ah Biao, and Ah Hong, aren't these the three brothers from Flying Dragon General? Yang Suiyun couldn't help but look at Long John and said to himself that this guy not only has strong business skills, but also is very capable of fighting. This makes people burst into laughter, is that right? Lawyers not only need to have strong professional skills, but also be very skilled in fighting. The reason doesn't make sense, so let's use physics, which is very reasonable. Call one get two free, Flying Dragon Warrior, this deal is worth it. My East Factory, no, the company needs talents like you. Seeing that Yang Suiyun's gaze was a bit strange, Long John felt a bit uncomfortable and said to himself, is this young man okay? Long John coughed lightly and reminded, Mr. Yang, if you want to hire a lawyer, please consult the front desk. Yang Suiyun patted his shoulder and smiled, aren't you a lawyer? It's just you. Long John pointed to his big nose and looked surprised, saying, me. But I'm still in the trial stage, isn't it suitable? Can we handle bonds, start a company, draft contracts, and register patents? Yes, but... It's nothing, but it's just you. Upon learning that someone had appointed lawyer Long to work, the owner of the firm touched his strong hairstyle and thought to himself, could this newcomer, Long John, play the role of a pig and eat a tiger? He was actually very skilled. If that's the case, then you can become a regular in advance. The so-called probationary period is just a period of cheap labor, but once there is outstanding performance, the price will naturally increase and become valuable labor. At the entrance of the office, Yang Suiyun said solemnly, let's meet at the exchange tomorrow. Remember to call your two good brothers and I'll hire them to work. Their monthly salary is 10,000 yuan. Long John swallowed his saliva and said to himself that this treatment was even higher than his own, outrageously high, it's really unreasonable. However, seeing the two brothers have a very well-paid job, Long John is still very happy in his heart. The next morning at 9 o'clock, at the gate of the stock exchange, Yang Suiyun saw a group of 3 people. At this time, they are really young, only in their 20s, which is the year of fighting. Seeing Yang Suiyun, Huang Feihong and Dong Debiao were both stunned, thinking to themselves that this could not be the illegitimate child of a wealthy man, could it? Otherwise, the explanation won't work. You're a low-level pretty guy, why did you jump to the top when you turned 18? At this time, Huang Feihong could not find a new way to make money and could only sell martial arts. Dong Debiao's mind was still normal and there were no signs of nervousness. When a job with a monthly salary of 10,000 yuan came to their door, the two of them nodded in agreement without much consideration. Huang Feihong asked, Boss, what do we need to do? Dong Debiao also had a curious expression on his face. Seeing the two of them quickly entering the roles, Yang Suiyun felt relieved and smiled, the company is about to be established, and you two are the managers of the security department. Your responsibility is not light, after all, the ancient troublemakers nowadays are very impulsive and will come to cause trouble. The two of them glanced at Ah Long, it seemed that he had said something good about their skills. Dong Debiao suddenly spoke up and asked, how many people are there in the security department? Yang Suiyun's face remained unchanged and he said, the company has not yet been officially established, and people still need to continue recruiting. If you have trustworthy friends, you can also introduce them. The two shook their heads slightly, indicating that there was none. Yang Suiyun looked at Long John and smiled, saying, if you leave that law firm, welcome to join my company. You will be in charge of the legal department. Before he could express his opinion, he handed over the anonymous bond and said calmly, "Sell this anonymous bond." Dragon John took it and instinctively opened it. After a few rough glances, his breathing couldn't help but become heavy. Huang Feihong and Dong Debiao looked curiously, and when they saw the number, 300 million, their whole body seemed to be electrocuted and frozen in place. 3 billion, it's actually 3 billion. The three of them unanimously agreed that this dignified and handsome young man was indeed the illegitimate son of some wealthy man. I thought it was difficult to sell these 300 million bonds, but in reality, I slapped Yang Suiyun and someone came to take over before noon. According to the other party's lawyer, the clients are Mr. Chen and Mr. Gao, so it is difficult to disclose specific information. After dispelling his doubts, Yang Suiyun walked out of the exchange and snapped his fingers, saying, "Let's go, start a company, buy buildings, factories, and shops." The three of them secretly pursed their lips and said, "Is being rich a big deal for a nouveau riche?" Then he nodded heavily and said, "Well, having money is amazing, it means you can do whatever you want. I want to become a nouveau riche, please give me a chance." Next, Yang Suiyun first established 2 companies and later bought buildings, factories, and shops. Established Oriental Dream Company, responsible for developing games and software, including Fengyun Game City. Establishing Newbie Electronic Technology Company, responsible for the manufacturing of Raspberry Pi, is actually just a shell, because Raspberry Pi cannot be made at all, and can only be ordered from the system. Standing on the top floor of the newly renamed Oriental Dream Building, office building, Yang Suiyun looked down from all directions and couldn't help but feel a boundless sense of pride in his heart. Let's keep going. Counting outstanding figures, let's still look at the present day. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Chen Haonan's collision with the South Wall. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Chen Haonan's collision with the South Wall. When Nguyen looked at Chen Haonan and his 5 companions, feeling both angry and amused, he couldn't help but shake his head. These 5 people would come over from time to time, sitting for half a day. Don't you know it's still Spring Festival now? What's the decency of staying at home on Yuan Shao, filled round balls made of glutinous rice. Flour for Lantern Festival, and running around all day? After putting down the drink, when Nguyen reminded, "You don't need to come often. They have their own business to do with their long hair and cannot come over frequently." The 5 of them were so embarrassed that they could only remain silent. The mountain chicken grinned and said, "Brother Long, we just came to see you. After all, there are cheap and delicious drinks here." Before finishing speaking, his gaze glanced to the other side. When Nguyen couldn't help but laugh and stepped forward to pat the pheasant's head, warning, "Don't scrutinize others with such eyes and eyes. If you want to get to know them, go there boldly. You're so salty and wet, sooner or later you'll stumble." The mountain chicken awkwardly withdrew its gaze and lowered its head to drink. Although it's not surprising to see many, Chen Haonan and the others still looked down upon the mountain chicken. When Nguyen looked at Chen Haonan and asked, "Why haven't you seen Yang Suiyun? Didn't he say he had time to come and sit down?" Chen Haonan replied, "In the first few days of the Spring Festival, Yun Gu was still at home, but he couldn't see anyone after that. We went to his house before we came, but we're still not at home," agreed the mountain chicken. When Nguyen thought for a moment and asked, "Could it be the people from Dongxing who are causing him trouble?" The 5 of them once said before that Yang Suiyun had a grudge against Dongxing Crow and Sand Grasshopper, fearing that those 2 would secretly attack. Chen Haonan shook his head and said, "Brother Yun is fine. According to his neighbors, he usually doesn't go home until evening. I guess he works somewhere." When Nguyen nodded and said with a smile, "Don't just sit idle all day. If you are determined not to read, then find a serious job to do." 5 people looked at each other, unsure of how to answer. With a glint of his eyes, the mountain chicken smiled and said, "Brother Long, why don't we just follow you to do things?" When Nguyen's face suddenly showed a hint of shock, and then he nodded at the slippery pheasant, saying, "Play dumb, this small shop doesn't need so many people." At that moment, the store door was pushed open by someone. Chen Haonan's eyes lit up and he felt great joy in his heart. Long-haired brother. The five of them stood up and greeted. Long Hair just nodded lightly and then said hello to Wen Nguyen. Wen Nguyen asked in confusion, "Are you here for something?" Long Hair hesitated for a while and said, "Brother Long, the big guy invited everyone to eat rice dumpling. Let's come and invite you." Chen Haonan and the five of them perked up their ears. This big shot should be the big brother that Yuan long followed before. Wen Nguyen refused directly, "Thank you for your kindness. I won't go eat the food over there. I'm used to the food here." Seeing that Brother Long had made up his mind and didn't say much about his long hair, he nodded at him and said, "I understand, Brother Long, we're leaving." Seeing his long hair turn around and leave, Chen Haonan and several others followed suit. "Long-haired brother, we will send you a gift for Long brother." Wen Nguyen's lips twitched as he silently looked at the five of them, who had taken the initiative to become dwarves. Outside the shop, the pheasant smiled and said, "Brother Long Hair, the Yuan Shao, filled round balls made of glutinous rice. Flour for Lantern Festival is coming to an end. We will go to see you tomorrow." Long Hair glanced at the pheasant and turned to look at Chen Haonan, who was somewhat similar to Long Gu in his youth, and said, "Don't waste your breath unless Long Gu nods. There are some things about Long Hair that have not been explicitly stated. Brother Long has explained that if he sees 5 people being bullied, he can take care of 1 or 2, but he cannot accept them as his younger brother." After seeing Long Hair finish speaking, they turned around and left, and the 5 couldn't help but sigh. "How about we go find the Kowloon 3 eagles tomorrow," suggested the mountain chicken. 4 people nodded. But the next day, when they finally found the 9 dragons and 3 eagles, the 5 of them were mercilessly rejected again. The big eagle among the 9 dragons and 3 eagles directly pointed out, "It's not that we don't want to accept it, it's because Brother Long has already told us that you should die of this heart." Chen Haonan was unconvinced and said, "Brother Long only said that you can't accept it before the Yuan Shao, filled round balls made of glutinous rice. Flour for Lantern Festival is over, but the Yuan Shao, filled round balls made of glutinous rice. Flour for Lantern Festival is over." The eagle was about to slap him, but when he saw the familiar face, he had to remind him. Brother Long did say that after the Yuan Shao, filled round balls made of glutinous rice. Flour for Lantern Festival, we were free, so now we follow Brother Long's wishes. If he asks us not to accept you, we will not accept you. Whether it's Long Hair or San Ing, they have been with Long Gu for many years and naturally understand the meaning behind Long Ge's words. Since Brother Long has expressed his unwillingness to let these 5 people join the club, he cannot accept them himself. Not long after, Chen Haonan and 5 others were kicked out of the store. The 5 of them looked depressed and became increasingly angry as they thought about it. So, 5 people started wandering around the street. The 5 of them wandered aimlessly without noticing the shadow behind them. After an unknown amount of time, Bao Dern noticed that his stomach was starting to rumble. He turned his head to look around and saw a clock from a certain store. "Brother Haonan, it's almost 1 o'clock. Let's go eat something." Bao Dern rubbed his deflated stomach and reminded him. Bao Daming gave his younger brother a silent glare. Chen Haonan sighed and said, "How much money do we have left?" "You won't know." The mountain chicken nodded and said, "Let's leave here and look for a bakery." "Where is there?" "Let's buy some pineapple buns." Just then, a voice suddenly came out. "Ladies and gentlemen, are you hungry? We happen to have endless pineapple buns here, please have them." The 5 of them turned their heads and saw 2 people with distinctive appearances, and at first glance, they knew that each other was from a mixed society. "By the way, my name is Ajay and I often come here to play. They all call me Jiagu. At first glance, the 2 of them were fierce characters, and the 5 of them had to admit it and took the pineapple bun that the other party had extended for a long time. "Thank you, brother Jie." Jiegu smiled and said, "Eat it, why, dislike it?" Chen Haonan and the 5 of them had no choice but to take a few bites of the pineapple bun. "I know there's a bar, it's quite big there. My boss is right there, welcome to play." The faces of the 5 people changed greatly. Jiegu blinked and changed his expression, saying coldly, "Why, you ate our pineapple buns and left like this." The other person sneered and said, "Boss, please. I value you all. Don't be disrespectful." In the end, the 5 of them had to obediently follow the instructions. Not long after, the 5 of them walked into a bar, which was indeed quite large. Jiegu respectfully said to a person, "Boss, I have brought you." Chen Haonan and the 5 of them finally realized that they had already been targeted. Just why? Just when the 5 of them were puzzled and somewhat anxious, the boss spoke up. "Don't be nervous, please sit down as you please. My name is Volcano, just call me Volcano brother." Looking at the volcano's handsome face, which exuded a sinister aura, the 5 of them felt a bit weak in their legs. "Volcano brother." Chen Haonan pinched his thigh and quickly said hello. The 4 mountain chickens quickly spoke up and said hello. The volcano snapped its fingers and said with a smile, "Not bad, don't you want to join the club? As long as you do something for me, I will personally take care of you and let you follow me directly." The 5 of them couldn't help but shiver, obviously scared by that smiling face. Although Chen Haonan and his 5 companions have always wanted to join the club, it does not mean that any boss wants to join. The 5 of them will never foolishly do things that replace dead ghosts. Don't be nervous, this way, Ajay, let the 5 little brothers eat, drink, have fun, and then take them back. You have to personally deliver them to your doorstep. Facing the back of the volcano leaving, Jiegu respectfully said, "Okay, boss, I will definitely do things beautifully." The hearts of Chen Haonan and his 5 companions suddenly fell into an ice cellar, feeling what malice was. Looking at the delicious wine and dishes brought up, the 5 of them felt a sense of desolation. The food and drinks at this table were not so delicious, and it was said that it might cause a loss of life. But the 5 also knew that they couldn't resist at all. Not everyone has the ability of a crow to lift a table anytime, anywhere. 2 hours later, the 5 people who had been spending their days like a year walked out of the bar. Even though there is still sunshine now, the 5 of Chen Haonan cannot feel any warmth. Jiegu patted Chen Haonan's shoulder and said in his ear, "I know you want to join Long Hair's team, but did you know that Long Hair is also under Volcano Brothers' command? Joining us is actually like joining Long Hair and the others. Let's go, the sun is about to set." 5 people felt a mix of flavors in their hearts, and they couldn't believe that they had intersected with the club in this way. This is not what we want. The feet of the 5 seemed to have been filled with lead and could not move a step. The 5 of them knew well that if they knew their home address, they would be tightly held and unable to resist in the future. What should we do? The temperature was still slightly cold, but all 5 of them were sweating from behind. Jie sneered and slapped Chen Haonan on the head, saying coldly, "Haonan, let's go." Chen Haonan woke up with a slap, gritted his teeth, and gritted his scalp, saying, "Jie, don't do it anymore. We will definitely go to the Kowloon ice room tomorrow." Jie glanced at the legs of the 5 people and said in confusion, "No. Did I break your legs? Or did you hit me?" He then looked at the little brother behind him. The younger brothers suddenly understood and pulled out a steel pipe about 50 centimeters long from their waist, smiling as they looked at the feet of the 5 people. At this moment, Chen Haonan and his 5 companions felt the arrogance and tyranny of the club, as well as the ruthlessness and cruelty of the ancient troublemaker. Jie grabbed the little brother's steel pipe with one hand and coldly slapped it on Chen Haonan's buttocks. "If you don't leave, your butt will bloom." "Huh, Jiegu, you need to be gentle. Gentle P, if you come out to mess around, you just need to be ruthless. Accept your fate, no one can save you. Just as Jia was about to draw out another stick, the mountain chicken quickly spoke up and said, Jia, no, let's go right away, I'll lead the way. Before the words fell, the mountain chicken quickly pushed the four of them forward. Chen Haonan angrily said, Mountain chicken, you. The mountain chicken felt bitter in his heart, but he still urged, go, go, don't make Jia angry. Jia laughed and gave a thumbs up to the pheasant. Very good, pheasant. You are someone who does great things, I'll keep an eye on you. A hint of ferocity flashed in the eyes of the mountain chicken, but a smile appeared in the next second. He flattered and said, Thank you, brother Jia. I hope you will take care of me. Anger rose in the hearts of Chen Haonan and the four of them, their eyes cracking and staring coldly at the pheasant. The mountain chicken has bitterness that cannot be expressed, and can only show a bitter smile. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Changing the Fate Line with One Step. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Changing the fate line with one step along the way, the mountain chicken prays all the way. Chen Haonan and his four companions went from initial anger to confusion halfway through, and finally transformed into their current expectations. Until now, the four finally understood Shanji's idea of seeking help from Yungu again. As for whether it will cause big trouble for Brother Yun, whether it's the mountain chicken or the four of Chen Haonan, we can't handle so much for now. As long as you muddle through, go find Long Gu early tomorrow morning and ask him to come forward and solve the problem. Even if Long Gu doesn't care, Long Hair and Three Eagles will definitely not turn a blind eye to death. After all, the people the volcano wants to frame are Long Gu, and they are Long Ji's younger brothers. It is impossible for them to pretend to be deaf and mute in this matter. Standing in front of Yang Suiyun's house, the mountain chicken swallowed its saliva, gritted its teeth, and raised its hand to knock on the door. In this quiet corridor, the aggressive knocking on the door sounded particularly piercing. Brother Yun, we're back. Everyone waited for almost a minute, but there was still no movement at the door. Shanji, you're not playing with us, are you? The anticipation in the hearts of the 5 mountain chickens was instantly shattered. Isn't Brother Yun coming back in the evening? It's already dark now. The mountain chicken didn't give up and started knocking hard on the door, shouting loudly, Yun Gu, open the door, we're home. Chen Haonan and the others dared not turn their heads to look at the faces of Jia Gu and the others. They could only follow their subconscious and stare straight at the door. The door opened, and there was hope. If the door is still tightly closed, then our 5 people will also be beaten badly. Jia Gu spoke again, Shanji, you'd better. The mountain chicken touched its rooster head, lowered its body, and showed a pleasing smile, saying, Jia, I didn't lie to you. Big brother will be back soon, please wait a little longer. Jia Gu slapped him and with a loud bang, a clear red handprint left on the pheasant's face. Shanji smiled and said, Thank you Jia, thank you Jia. We'll just wait a little longer. Yun Gu will be back soon, probably going to buy groceries. Jia Gu was momentarily stunned by the reaction of the mountain chicken, then laughed and nodded with his index finger, saying, Did you see that? This is the ability to bend and stretch. Shanji, you really Tamade is a talent. The mountain chicken chuckled and bowed, saying, Thank you, brother Jia, for taking care of me. Jia Gu and the others couldn't help but burst out laughing. Looking at the humble appearance of the mountain chicken, Chen Haonan and his companions felt so uncomfortable that they lowered their heads. Time is slowly passing by, and in silence, 10 minutes have passed. Shanji, don't be so cruel and ruthless, brother Strange. I've given you a chance. The heart of the mountain chicken felt as if it had been forcefully pinched by someone, and cold sweat broke out from its forehead. Jia Gu, no need, please listen to me. Listen to you, old wooden. Jia Gu slapped the chicken and blood-stained the corner of its mouth. If this were your home, would you not have a key? Even if you didn't have a key, it's already this time. Your family doesn't even have a person. Your family is extinct. The mountain chicken is speechless. Jiegu suddenly burst out laughing and looked around, saying, since this is the Shanji family, let him wait here. Let's go to Chen Haonan's house. The five of them were greatly shocked and felt a wave of fear. Jackie raised his chin and said to the little brother behind him, break one of the legs of the mountain chicken and let him rest at the doorstep waiting for his family to come back. After finishing speaking, he turned to Chen Haonan and the others, saying with a smile, I hope you still remember your doorstep, otherwise your legs will also break, and not one, but two. After all, good things come in pairs. Misfortune never comes singly, good things come in pairs. It turns out that we can still interpret it this way. The younger brothers nodded repeatedly, indicating that they have lost their studies. With despair in his eyes, the mountain chicken sat down on the ground. Chen Haonan looked angrily at Jiegu. Just as a young man was holding up an iron pipe and preparing to give the pheasant a good cheer, a voice suddenly rang out. Oh ho, what kind of garbage are you? How dare you pile up at my doorstep? Upon hearing the oh ho sound, Jiegu and his companions were startled and thought to themselves, is this person walking silently? A few people turned around and found that he was a very handsome young man, and he was very tall, especially his straight long legs, which made people want to come forward and break them. Grass, another handsome guy that makes people hate him. The mountain chicken and a few others instantly became restless, their expressions changed, and the haze dissipated. Brother Yuan. The five members of the mountain chicken quickly greeted and then instinctively lowered their heads. Jiegu and the others suddenly realized that this person was Yungu. Young Suiyun glanced at the crowd and finally looked at the pheasant. He said with a smile, Pheasant, why, after the Yuan Shao, filled round balls made of glutinous rice. Flour for Lantern Festival, you can't help inviting your new brother. Before they could answer, he added, where's the gift? You won't come empty-handed, will you? The mountain chicken lowered its head in shame and said, I'm sorry, Brother Yuan, I've caused you trouble again. Yungu, I'm sorry. Chen Haonan and others lowered their heads and apologized. Young Suiyun waved his hand and looked at the embarrassed appearance of the few people. He shook his head slightly and said, I've told you all before that being an ancient troublemaker has no future, let alone a good ending. Did you take the initiative to cause trouble, or did they intentionally trouble you? Chen Haonan gritted his teeth and said, Brother Yuan, it was they who forced us to do something and asked us to hide the white powder in the Kowloon ice room to frame Brother Long. Jiegu and his companions regained their senses, gripping the steel pipe and staring coldly at Yang Suiyun. Ignoring the cannibalistic gazes of several people, Yang Suiyun curiously said, whose subordinates are they? The mountain chicken replied, their leader is called Volcano. Oh. Yang Suiyun suddenly realized and looked at Jiegu and the others, sneering, what a wicked thing. The volcano used to be like the nine-striped dragon, but now it's the boss, and even the former boss wants to kill him. It's really dark. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone suddenly understood. The former boss had a limp and withdrew from the martial arts world. Unexpectedly, the younger brother dared to inflict pain on the assassin. He was truly ruthless. Jiegu angrily said, how dare you slander Brother Volcano and seek death? Break this kid's limbs and take him to Brother Volcano. Upon hearing this, the younger brothers immediately cast aside their unnecessary thoughts, raised their weapons, and rushed towards Yang Suiyun. There is an iron rule in the club. Whether the big brother's right or wrong can be discussed by the lower class, not even slander. Yang Suiyun looked at the so-called weapons and mocked, a brainless ancient fool will always be a short mule. A mere 50-centimeter steel pipe, also wanting to be used to hang a wall, it's like a toad yawning, with such a big breath. Facing the incoming person, Yang Suiyun quickly kicked and hit the opponent's abdomen. The person who came was like a cooked shrimp, with a bright red face, slightly protruding eyes, and a body bent into an inverted U, unable to even scream before flying backwards. Because it was a hallway, the people behind couldn't dodge and were directly hit. No one knows how powerful this kick is, while others only see the person in front falling backwards one after another. It's like playing bowling, one in front was hit, the other in the back was hit by a seedling, and they were all knocked away one after another. Upon discovering that it was just one kick, his little brothers were all kicked away, lying on the ground one by one, howling in agony. Jia couldn't help but take a cold breath. Chen, Haonan and the 5 of them were all stunned, not expecting Yun-gu to become stronger again. Has Yun found a powerful martial arts school and gone to learn from his master? Jia-gu was furious in his heart, took out a butterfly knife from his pocket, let out a roar, and suddenly turned around to rush towards the 5 little sheep behind him. Humph, I can't beat a tiger, can't I even take care of the sheep? However, only halfway through his body did Jackie notice a burst of pain coming from his waist, and then he realized that he had lost his sense of direction. Originally, the Tianer, who was closest to him, noticed Jia Ji's abnormality. Without saying a word, he took a swift step forward and kicked him fiercely. Roar, turn around, get kicked, all of these actions are completed in 1 second. The incident happened too suddenly, and many people didn't come to their senses when they saw Jia-gu also lying on the ground. Young Suiyun couldn't help but take a glance at the Tianer and thought to himself, this kid is okay. He has eye problems and fast feet, so he can fight back with one strike. Young Suiyun quickly stepped forward, stomping heavily on Jia Ji's wrist, and then slowly put away the butterfly knife. Broken, Yun-gu, misunderstandings, they are all misunderstandings. Jia Ji's tears streamed out and he cried out heart-wrenching, Yun-gu, be merciful, I was wrong. Young Suiyun sneered and turned to Chen, Haonan and the others, saying, put away those few steel pipes, and I will sell them as scrap iron in the future. The 5 of them were stunned for a moment. It turned out that if they won, they could really collect the spoils at will. However, to the surprise of the 5 people, the few lying on the ground had already voluntarily handed over the steel pipe. Except for the short mule who was kicked unconscious. At this moment, Chen, Haonan and the 5 of them had a new understanding of Gu Fuzi. The 5 of them took the steel pipe and couldn't help but think in their hearts, it seemed that they were still too weak. If they were as strong as Yun-gu, Jia-gu and his group in front of them would just be a group of jumping clowns. Leave the medical expenses behind, you can go. By the way, tell the volcano that if he dares to jump over the wall, I will break his dog leg. Jia-gu and his companions handed over all their money and thanked Yang Suiyun before leaving behind their backs. Yang Suiyun glanced at the mountain chicken and said with a smile, take the money and divide it among the 5. 10 minutes later, Yang Suiyun brought out the hot roasted duck and goose, and then took out juice and cola. Eat first, then finish eating. Seeing Yang Suiyun eating zhenghua with goose legs, the 5 of them slowly relaxed their hearts. Looking back now, the 5 of them still have some lingering palpitations in their hearts, and at the same time, some remorse. If they were like last time, causing Yun-gu to be seriously injured, then they would really not be human anymore. After Bao Daming finished washing the dishes and returned to the small living room, Ang Suiyun asked about the situation. After listening to the statements of the 5 people, Ang Suiyun understood in his heart that after Zhuanlong returned to Hong Kong, the volcano found it difficult to bring the team, especially Long Hair. He was determined to return to Zhuanlong's side to work. As a big brother, I only value 3 things. Money, face, and claws. The volcano feels very embarrassed now and will lose a powerful claw, so naturally it wants to solve the source of the problem. The source of the problem is the 9-striped dragon, the former big brother and now the lame waiter. Why bother with Chen Haonan? It's simple, he looks very similar to the 9-striped dragon in his youth. Just using the crime of forcing students to sell drugs can put Zhuanlong in prison for 10 years, and after 10 years, all the dust will settle. Looking back for a long time, young Suiyun spoke up and said, "So, tomorrow morning you go to the Jiulong ice room and remind Wen Nuyen that the volcano wants to kill him and make him wary. It's best to also talk to Changfa and Sanning about this matter, so that they can be mentally prepared. Also, the horse before Wen Nuyen was named Ma Jiaohong, and her current boyfriend is called the Prince. She is a big shot in the club. Be careful of this stubborn woman, she will do some foolish things that will affect Wen Nuyen and their child Zhao Long. Remind Wen Nuyen to prepare early." 5 people nodded in succession. The mountain chicken suddenly spoke up and asked, "Brother Yun, how would you know about these things?" Young Suiyun shrugged and said with a smile, "Everyone on the road knows, even the lady who sweeps the toilet knows." 5 people squinted slightly. "Is that right? I don't believe it." Speaking of which, young Suiyun glanced at the 5 people and said, "You see, being a short mule doesn't have a good ending. If you meet a kind-hearted person like me, at most it will be a scolding to you. If you meet those people just now, breaking your legs is still considered good. I'm afraid that after breaking your legs, you will have to go to jail for a few years." 5 people couldn't help but lower their heads. "On the 1st of next month, my store will open. If you really don't go to school, come and help me with things. But remember, if you continue to go your own way and become the ancient troublemakers who despise dogs, don't come to me again when you encounter hard criticism. I'm afraid others will misunderstand. I'm not your boss and won't cover you up." The 5 of them remained silent for a long time, but finally nodded. The mountain chicken said curiously, "Brother Yun, what kind of store are you running?" "A big food stall." Seeing the 5 people looking curious, young Suiyun didn't hide anything and said, "It's a computer game city, not the kind of arcade where coins are put in." "What is a computer game?" "Like Nintendo's red and white phones." Young Suiyun was too lazy to explain and said, "Don't you just know when you come by the end of the month? You can play games and get paid, don't say I don't take care of you." 5 people think it's good, and the next second they will just forget about joining the club. Joining a club is unpredictable. Helping Yungu with work, money, and games, even fools know how to choose. The matter of reminding Wen Nuyen was entrusted to 5 people, Chen Haonan, while the company's affairs were temporarily handed over to Long John and Huang Feihong. Young Suiyun and Dong Debiao went to the game city to handle the online issue of Raspberry Pi. On that day, when young Suiyun was riding his motorcycle to the game city as usual, he found several ancient troublemakers on the roadside extorting people. That unlucky guy looked a bit familiar, with a fair and handsome appearance, only slightly inferior to himself. The old man with yellow hair patted the face of the little white face in front of him and cursed with a gloomy expression, "Damn it, do you want to pay a protection fee for setting up a stall here? Who gave you the courage? Where are you doing?" The green hair on the side looked at the annoying handsome face, gritted its teeth and pinched it. It wasn't until it left a clear and beautiful pinch mark that a smile appeared. "Weakened child, being a vendor also requires support." Yellow-haired nodded and smiled, "Either pay the protection fee or join us, you have the freedom to choose." The other ancient scholars laughed heartily, and some even said, "We cook very well, just like a foolish eagle political woman." The short mule who spoke these words immediately knew that he was a newspaper reader and knew some current affairs. Seeing the timid expression on Xiao Bai's face, resembling a quail, the few of them laughed even happier. But the next second, everyone put away their smiles because a motorcycle had stopped and a tall and sturdy man was slowly approaching. "I hate yellow hair the most, despise green hair the most, and can't stand old-fashioned kids the most. Congratulations, you all have it." Although the person did not take off their helmet, everyone still heard what the other person was saying. "Grass, gone he. Gone." Seeing the young leaders Huang Mao and Green Mao taking the lead, the others also pulled out their short weapons from their waists. Looking down at the short mules, young Suiyun struck one by one with lightning speed, punching close and kicking far. After a few loud bangs, a few confused kids fell to the ground and couldn't get up, vomiting on the ground. After kicking away the ancient troublemaker who was blocking the way, Suiyun walked up to the handsome guy and said, "Being a vendor has no future. You can't handle these ancient troublemakers." The handsome guy didn't say much, just said, "Thank you." Looking at the other person's face, Suiyun was a bit unsure who he was, so he asked, "What's your name?" After saying that, he took off his helmet. Seeing the handsome face full of righteousness, the handsome guy breathed a sigh of relief and felt much more at ease. He replied, "Li Yuan." After recalling for a while, Suiyun finally remembered that the person in front of him was Jimmy. "My name is Suiyun. I will open a store at XXX Street, Tsim Sha Sui on the 1st of next month. If you want to come and do something, come and see me at the end of this month. Pack your things and leave. If no one covers you, you won't be able to set up a stall normally. But even if someone covers you, there won't be much money to get in the end." Li Jiayuan remained silent, glanced at the figure of Suiyun leaving, and then at the ancient confused boy lying on the ground, retching like a drunken man. He decisively turned around and left. "Since you can stand, why do you have to lie down like a spineless dog?" March 1st, Thursday, sunny, suitable for receiving wealth. On this day, the game city finally opened. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. My territory, listen to me. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. My territory, listen to me. Firecrackers blared, gongs and drums roared, and people gathered in front of the Fongyun Game City. For 7 consecutive days of promotion, everyone in Hong Kong is aware of this. Suiyun previously spent a lot of money to buy a building in this bustling area, which is 7 floors high. The first to 4th floors have been transformed into a game hall, and each floor is decorated with a modified version of Raspberry Pi 400 and a simplified version of Raspberry Pi 400. The former is used as a microcomputer, while the latter is a game console. The total number of the two versions is 250, including 20 modified versions. After making some minor changes to the modified Raspberry Pi 400, it will be released separately and named Raspberry Pi Pro. However, it will not be connected to a LCD display, but to a TV through an AV interface. It's only 1984 now, and the VGA interface hasn't been released yet. Currently, it's the world of big but CRT displays. LCD displays are too high-end and difficult to sell in large quantities. It was not until 1987 that IBM officially released the first monitor with a VGA interface. In order to beat Nintendo's red and white phones and Sega EP1-10, Suiyun has prepared a simplified version of Raspberry Pi 400, named Raspberry Pi Lite. On a simple table, place a Raspberry Pi Lite, a 17-inch LCD monitor, a USB game controller, and a wired headphone. As a gaming console, the Lite Raspberry Pi 400 is not a keyboard design, but a palm-sized rectangular box. The modified Raspberry Pi 400 will be placed separately, not in the same area as the cheap Raspberry Pi Lite. The modified Raspberry Pi 400 comes with 3 USB 2.0 interfaces, and the Raspbian operating system includes Minesweeper, Solitaire, FreePlay, Pinyin input method, Sangjia input method, calculator, notepad, calendar, lunar walker simulator, as well as a simplified version of LibreOffice that only includes text documents, spreadsheets, and presentations. Through the Lunar Ranger simulator, you can play a variety of games, many of which support both single-player and LAN modes. The Raspbian operating system is very simple, with only the taskbar, start menu, and desktop. On the desktop, there are only shortcuts to the simplified version of LibreOffice, Lunar Walker Simulator, Recycle Bin, a help document, and a save folder. Other things, such as my documents, my computer, and my online neighbors, are all missing. Allow data to be saved, but by default, it is only allowed to be saved in the save folder on the desktop. Everyone rushed in, wanting to see the unique features of this store, which claims to be the world's first computer game city. From the first to the fourth floor, each floor has a relatively large service desk, and the waiter also serves as a salesperson, selling Raspberry Pi Pro, Raspberry Pi Lite, and games. There are 10 waiters on each floor, 6 men and 4 women. The waiters are all busy now, introducing how to start for those who are not yet aware of the situation. Non-members are charged 5 yuan per hour. After spending 100 yuan to apply for a membership card, regular members are charged 4 yuan per hour, premium members are charged 3 yuan, and premium members are charged 2 yuan. It should be noted that only a one-time recharge of 1,000 yuan can be promoted to a premium member, and a recharge of 10,000 yuan can be promoted to a premium member. Allow cancellation of membership and card refund, but only refund half of the balance. After learning about the charging standards, everyone couldn't help but take a breath and realize that it was so expensive, much more expensive than arcade halls. Is there any reason why the game currency in the arcade hall is only a few cents, and if you don't apply for a card to play for an hour, it will cost 5 yuan? Is the balance only refunded in half? Wang Defa, how dare you? What, choose non-members? Okay, you won. I don't know if there is any natural reason, but there are definitely people who are willing to spend 5 yuan to give it a try. Pretty girl, the fees are so expensive. How many games are there? Not many, there seem to be 50 different types of games available. You. Stop talking, here, 10 yuan, bring the card. As a wall-hanging game, young Suiyun modified the following game through the Mind Workshop. Action Games. Demon Village, 7 Treasures, Galaxy Warrior, Double Dragons, Athena, produced by SNK, Saint Seiya Golden Legend, Journey to the West, Pretty Girl Warrior, Jurassic Park, Dragon Ball Adventure, Rockman, Ninja Dragon Sword, Ninja Turtle, ISU. Lost ISU Ancient Kingdom Shooting Games. Sol Dolua, Space Cruiser, Soldier Bee, Tank Battle, Saruman Snake, Cuban Hero, Angry Ikari, German Headquarters 3D Fighting Games. Kung Fu, Street Fighter, VR Warrior, Yu Yu Bai Shu Bao Do Dark Martial Arts Club Adventure Games. Wilderness Daredevil, Adventure Island, also known as High Bridge Celebrity Adventure Island, Hero Legend, Hylerus Fantasy Zelda Legend, Game King Monster Capsule GB Simulation Games. Three Kingdoms, Central Plains Dominator, Simulation City, Swallowing Heaven and Earth Role-Playing Games. Dragon Ball Mystery, Resurrection of Dragon Ball 2 Demon Kings, Dragon Ball Wukong Zhuan, Brave Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, Devil City, JoJo's Wonderful Adventures, Storm of the World, Crayon Shin Chan, Little Mermaid, Mystery of Magic Gate I Soul Holy Land, Number Code Devil Story Goddess Reincarnation, Golden Field 1 Youth Event Book, Detective Conan, Chess Soul, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone Sports Games. Hot-Blooded College Dodge Football Section, Slam Dunk Master, Hot-Blooded March Racing Game. Need for Speed Leisure Games. Great Wall Blocks, i.e. Tetris. Bubble Dragon Yang Suiyun firmly believes that with the above games, he is capable of dominating the gaming industry, allowing Nintendo and Sega to exit the console industry, and honestly become game software developers. Seeing Chen Haonan and his 5 companions gathered on the first floor, Yang Suiyun quickly waved to them. Haonan, Shanhe, you two go up to the 4th floor. Daming, you go up to the 2nd floor. Liang Er, you go up to the 3rd floor and form a team with Li Jiayuan. Follow the previous training to do things, and if anyone causes trouble, notify Long Gu, Fei Hong Gu, and Biao Gu. 4 people can all fight, 1 person in charge of 1 floor is just right. The 5 of them didn't expect Yun Gu to be assigned like this, and couldn't help but feel a bit uncomfortable, especially Liang Er. Seeing the 5 people standing still, Yang Suiyun said angrily, now we're in a team of 2, and we can't say for sure in the future. Why, we've all come out to do things, but our mentality hasn't adjusted yet. Do you think we're in school? Upon discovering signs of anger in Yun Gu, the 5 of them quickly turned around. Liangzi, we have already reminded you that smoking is not allowed in the lobby. If you want to smoke, you can go to the smoking room. Wow, is there any mistake? They don't even ban smoking in arcade halls. The fees here are so expensive that you don't even allow smoking. Don't talk nonsense, we allow smoking, but we need to go to the smoking room. Park Street, are you crazy? The smoking room is so far away, can't you bring an ashtray over? If you follow the rules, we'll call you pretty boy. If you're not satisfied, you can check out and leave. If you continue to provoke and cause trouble, we'll have to follow the rules. Oh, how dare you threaten the guests and drive them away? Liangzi, it's difficult for us to do this. Young Suiyun turned his head and looked at the sound source, only to find 3 men emitting a strong aura. It is normal to have a curious child come to play, and it is expected that the child will cause trouble. Yang Suiyun believes that the person who comes to collect the protection fee will not be absent. But the problem is, Yang Suiyun never thought of indulging the ancient troublemaker, let alone paying protection fees. Boss. The waiter quickly greeted Yang Suiyun. The 3 of them fixed their eyes and were overjoyed. It turned out that the boss was just a naive little devil. This kind of little ghost has no background, no strength, no experience, it's best to handle it. So you're the boss, just in time. You don't even offer an ashtray, it's really outrageous. With a thumbs up, Yang Suiyun said seriously, the smoking room is over there. Either go there or check out and leave. One person sneered, I don't appreciate it. Yang Suiyun looked down at the 3 of them and said with a smile, how about you apply for a Supreme membership card so that you can enjoy the Supreme private room alone? You can smoke or drink in it, it's up to you. The 3 of them stared coldly at Yang Suiyun. A Supreme membership card costs 10,000 Hong Kong dollars. Are you trying to steal money? The people around sensed the danger and instinctively moved back. Yang Suiyun waved to the other waiters who rushed over and said, everyone, go get busy with the business and receive the customers well. It's a busy time, how could it be possible to waste manpower on these little shrimp? After finishing speaking, he looked at the 3 people and said word by word, I don't care who you are or which boss you are with. As long as you dare to cause trouble, I will let you come in vertically and go out horizontally. Sweeping Yang Suiyun up and down with his gaze, a disdainful smile appeared on the faces of the 3. For a small white face, how hard can it be? Yang Suiyun made a gesture of invitation and said, either continue playing games, go to the smoking room, check out and leave, or I'll take you out. Sending you hemp. One of the irritable people cursed and grabbed the keyboard on the table, intending to use it as a weapon to give the little ghost in front of them a big fight. However, Yang Suiyun's movements were faster, and he quickly reached out his left hand, accurately grasping his neck, exerting a strong grip and lifting it upwards. The disharmonious words behind were immediately crushed by Yang Suiyun's big hand. Seeing their companion being lifted up by Yang Suiyun like a duck, the other 2 of them cursed loudly and raised their fists to fiercely hit Yang Suiyun's head. Moving his left hand to the right, he directly used someone's head as a shield to face him. At the same time, Yang Suiyun punched his right fist. There were 2 muffled sounds, followed by 2 screams. Everyone looked and found that one person had been hit on the face with nosebleeds, while the other person was sweating profusely on their forehead, holding their trembling right hand with their left hand and staring at Yang Suiyun in shock. Taking a glance at the opponent's discarded right hand, Yang Suiyun sneered and said arrogantly, the iron fist that I equip can be considered to be from the hand of Gung, the Minister of Justice of the Ministry of Justice. One fist at a time is a fool. With one hand pinching an antique figurine, Yang Suiyun instructed the waiter beside him, take this trash with you. The waiter nodded and without saying a word, grabbed the injured hand of the other person and pulled him out. Outside the gate, Yang Suiyun suddenly exerted force and pushed the 2 of them out. The 2 of them couldn't resist the tremendous force and flew forward, landing heavily on the street. Yang Suiyun looked at the still intact hand with a smile and asked, whose people are you? The fear suppressed the pain, and the curious guy who was asked dared not speak hard anymore. He quickly replied, "Our boss is a volcano, and he asked us to come." It turned out to be him. Young Suiyun knew it clearly in his heart. It seemed like he had to warn the other party first to avoid a significant impact on his business. But it has been so long since Jia Ji's incident, how did he send 3 people? Tell the volcano, I won't care about today's situation. Next time, I'll personally go over and cast his hands and feet in plaster. Get lost. Thinking that the other person had just punched and disabled one of his arms, Gu Fuzi's back became cold and he immediately lifted his leg and left. Unless you use a gun, you won't be able to provoke it. Gu Fuzi didn't want to become a useless person and planned to report truthfully before hiding and pretending to be dead. From then on, there was no big deal on the first floor, even if there were angry and impulsive ancient fools cursing, no one dared to take action again. Young Suiyun smashed the hand of an ancient troublemaker with a single punch, which many people saw. Gufuzi are not foolish either. Even if they do things well, they cannot ascend to the throne themselves. At most, they can earn tens of thousands of yuan, but this amount of money cannot cure a disabled hand. Young Suiyun noticed another group of young and energetic newcomers coming in, and asked the waiter to come over and remind him. I solemnly remind you once again that smoking is prohibited in the lobby, and uncivilized behaviors such as spitting and littering are prohibited. Fighting and causing trouble are also prohibited. If anyone dares to break the rules and knowingly violates them, we will personally take them to the ambulance. The younger generation suddenly became angry. Are you doing this against us? Although we smoke, drink, spit, argue, we are all energetic and beautiful young men. However, upon seeing the waiter's throbbing pectoral muscles, the young boys silently lowered their heads and walked towards the service desk. You are big, you have reason. The leading young man scanned the product cabinet and asked, "Pretty girl, how do you sell your game consoles and games?" The waitress smiled and said, "The price of Raspberry Pi Lite is similar to that of Nintendo FC, only 499 Hong Kong dollars. However, there is a discount this month, and buying Raspberry Pi Lite and any game can get a discount of 99 Hong Kong dollars. The younger generation's faces suddenly showed a surprised expression. The leader quickly asked, "How much does a game cost?" The waitress smiled and said, "The price range of the company's games is between 499 Hong Kong dollars to 699 Hong Kong dollars, while the price range for external games is between $69 to $99. Everyone doesn't have to think about it, as the foreign version is more expensive. It's both expensive and written in bird language, no one would buy a foreign version." The leader asked again, "Is the game console the same as the one in the store?" The game console is the Raspberry Pi Lite, which is very small in size. The waitress nodded slightly and added, "But there is also a model in the store called the Raspberry Pi Pro, which is a microcomputer that can not only play games but also work." Speaking of which, the waitress took out the Raspberry Pi Lite and smiled. This is the Raspberry Pi Lite that only supports gaming functions. It doesn't come with a keyboard and doesn't have as many accessories. As everyone looked, they suddenly noticed that the Raspberry Pi Lite was only slightly larger than the palm of their hand, with a thickness not exceeding 2 fingers. Compared to Nintendo and Sega's game consoles, the Raspberry Pi Lite is lighter, smaller, more energy efficient, and has more powerful features, the waitress added confidently. The leader asked, "How much does Raspberry Pi Pro cost?" If there is a passerby present, they will definitely answer with a rush. It's only $100. Unfortunately, there cannot be a second crossover on this plane. The waitress still smiled and said, "The Hong Kong version has a discounted price this month, only 37,999 Hong Kong dollars, while the foreign version is $4,999. Everyone feels scalp tingling, and this thing is also too expensive, it can be considered sky high. If someone knows about computers in this era, they won't find Raspberry Pi Pro expensive. In October 1981, the world's first personal computer, the IBM 5150, went on sale with a starting price of $1,565, excluding display cards, black and white displays, and fewer applications, while the high-end version was priced at over $3,000. By 1985, IBM 5150 had sold nearly 1 million units. In 1987, the IBM 5150 was discontinued. In January 1983, Apple Lisa made her debut for $9,995, randomly bundled with 7 commercial software. From this, it can be seen that the lighter and more powerful Raspberry Pi Pro is only sold for $4,999, which can be considered the price of cabbage, 100% of the industry's conscience. What, did you say its original price was only $100? Please, the price is not calculated that way. If you only take into account the time cost, the Raspberry Pi is worth $1 million. MOBB, my territory is up to me. The leader suddenly took out today's newspaper and pointed to the news headline, shocked. Raspberry Pi Pro core secrets leaked, losses difficult to estimate. He smiled and said, "Is what said above true?" The waitress turned cold and said, "No comment." Everyone burst into laughter and burst into tears. It's really a black door. On the first day of Raspberry Pi Pro's sale, a set of software activation codes worth thousands of dollars was leaked along with it. Every time I sell a Raspberry Pi Pro, I lose thousands of dollars. It's really bad. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Protection fees. You give it to me. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Protection fees. You give it to me. Today, a heavyweight news article was published in newspapers of all sizes on Hong Kong Island, reporting on the leakage of the activation code for the simplified version of LibreOffice by internal personnel. People who saw the news were thrilled. This is a set of universal activation codes worth thousands of dollars. Shame and loss of wealth, Oriental Dream Company is really weak. Good things never go out, bad things travel thousands of miles. To Yang Suiyun's surprise, even TVB and ATV have reported on this matter. This can be considered as well known throughout Hong Kong, and even through satellite television, people from other places have become aware of it. Yang Suiyun did not express any opinion on this and remained indifferent to curious people. I thought it would be a bit heartwarming to advertise in various newspapers and television for 7 consecutive days, but I didn't expect you to report the news. Sure enough, capitalism only focuses on interests. The so-called activation code leakage incident was naturally instigated by Yang Suiyun in secret, not because he didn't want to make money from the simplified version of LibreOffice, but because he insisted on being free. Only the full version of LibreOffice can be charged. However, a blessing in disguise is not a blessing. Human nature cannot withstand the test. If you can take advantage of thousands of dollars, will you? If you want to take it, you need to spend 37,999 Hong Kong dollars or $4,999 US first. Buy or not, don't block others if you don't buy, the waitress reminded with a cold face. Buy, of course buy, a Raspberry Pi Lite, and choose Street Fighter and Soul Fighter for the game. The lead brother patted his chest and said, Raspberry Pi Lite costs 499 Hong Kong dollars, 2 games cost 1,398 Hong Kong dollars, minus a discount of 99 Hong Kong dollars, for a total price of 1,798 Hong Kong dollars. Damn it, it's so expensive. Can it be cheaper? Oh, why don't you buy Kung Fu and Great Wall Blocks? Both of these games cost 499 Hong Kong dollars, which can be reduced by 400 yuan. The game console and games only cost 1398 Hong Kong dollars. The group whispered to each other, and after a while, the leader spoke up, forget it, we still need Street Fighter and Soul Doluadat. A few people, each offering 300, can still make up 1,800. And how could it be shameless to come out and mess around? Is it true that the face of our group of pretty guys is only worth 400 Hong Kong dollars? After paying the money, the leader who was about to leave suddenly pointed and asked, why are the 3 games, VR Warrior, German Headquarters 3D, and Storm of the World, marked with the word 3D, while the other games do not? The waitress explained, these 3 games have 3D graphics and Raspberry Pi Lite does not support them. They can only be played on Raspberry Pi Pro. The leader suddenly realized that no wonder he didn't see them in the game list before, it turned out that the game console didn't support them. As soon as he thought about the price of Raspberry Pi Pro, the leader could only shake his head and say, forget it, whatever it is, it should be around the same. Watching the happy departure of the short mules, the waitress pursed her lips and thought to herself that instead of buying game consoles and games, it would be better to become a member. Young Suiyun smiled knowingly as he noticed that there were quite a few people buying Raspberry Pi Lite. The console prices were similar, but the game prices were a bit cheaper. There were many games available in Chinese, so how did Nintendo and Sega compete? For the next 3 days, Yang Suiyun and the others will sit in the game city, while Long John will go to work on unfinished tasks. At noon that day, looking at the crowded game city, Huang Feihong smiled and said, business is so prosperous 24 hours a day. Boss, you have developed. Dong Debiao nodded in agreement and said, you can earn at least 10 million yuan a year. To their surprise, Yang Suiyun provided a room on the 5th floor for those in need to rest. Now that business is on track, the number of servers needed for each floor is no longer 10, only 5 people are needed. From now on, it will be divided into morning and evening shifts, with 2 groups rotating. As for the 6 extra Chen Haonan, they were all arranged for the morning shift. Yang Suiyun smiled and thought to himself that he would officially start his game cryptocurrency business tomorrow and earn an extra profit. Except for the Great Wall blocks, all other games can earn money by choosing either 99 lives, 999, 9999 coins, or invincible mode, and earning only 2 Hong Kong dollars per game. First, go have lunch. After finishing, Huang Feihong will go directly to the factory to train security personnel there for 3 days. Dong Debiao and I will go to Causeway Bay to inspect the Raspberry Pi flagship store there, and it will officially open in 2 days. The 2 nodded, and Yang Suiyun equipped all 3 with cars, a mobile phone, and a BP machine, which was very convenient. However, as the 3 of them finished lunch and were rushing back, Yang Suiyun's phone rang and it was Chen Haonan calling. Yun Gu, someone is here to collect protection fees. They are from Hongqing, and their leader is called the Crown Prince. After Yang Suiyun explained it, he hung up the phone. Huang Feihong asked, do you need me to stay? Yang Suiyun waved his hand and said with a smile, no need, a group of little servants. By the way, do you know the Crown Prince? Yang Suiyun is not very clear about many characters in The Ancient Puzzler, after all, not everyone has characteristics like a crow. Huang Feihong thought for a moment and shared what he knew. The Crown Prince's original name was Gan Zitai, and he was newly appointed as the Hongqing Tsim Sha Sui District Magistrate. He was very skilled in fighting and was known as the Hongqing God of War, which is the bravery, in the benevolence, righteousness, intelligence, and bravery category. Yang Suiyun nodded, but still couldn't remember who played the Crown Prince. Somehow, Yang Suiyun remembered another person from Hongqinzhou. Han Bin. Yang Suiyun was confused and shook his head slightly, saying, you go directly to the factory. The security work over there is very important, and no dangerous elements can enter. Returning to the game city, Yang Suiyun breathed a sigh of relief when he found that everything was fine and there was no chaos. I'm afraid those brainless short mules will start a big fight if they don't agree. In fact, what Yang Suiyun didn't know was that before coming, the Crown Prince's advisor, Ming Yin, had specifically instructed him to pay respect to his troops first. In the reception room, Yang Suiyun met Hongqing's person, led by a young man dyed with golden hair. Although he was not tall, he was really sturdy and looked very capable of fighting. It exudes the scent of a wild beast, and at a glance, it is clear that it is not a good fault. Yun Go, his name is Jin Maoqiang, the crown prince's leader, Chen Haonan whispered. Jin Maoqiang chuckled and carefully examined Yang Suiyun before saying in a muffled voice, surprisingly, he is a handsome guy, 3 points more beautiful than a celebrity. If you go to Bolan Street, it will definitely be very popular. Yang Suiyun smiled and sat down with a golden sword. He opened the door and asked directly, how much protection fee do you plan to charge Hongxing? Jin Maoqiang raised his index finger and said with a smile, not much, 100,000 a month. Before Yang Suiyun could express his opinion, Jin Maoqiang spoke again. We investigated for 3 days and found out how much money you can earn in a month. It's just a meager 100,000 yuan, pretty guy. You don't want this store to not continue, do you? Even refusing to shout, Boss Yang, and wanting to collect a protection fee of 100,000 yuan. Yang Suiyun nodded at Jin Maoqiang with his index finger and said with a smile, I'll call you Chianga. Just give me 50,000 yuan a month. Jin Maoqiang put away his smile and looked coldly at Yang Suiyun, warning, pretty guy, you need to understand propriety in your life. Don't be too big or too small, otherwise it's easy to fall into trouble. Yang Suiyun looked indifferent and glanced at the other 3 before saying, people like you are easy to fall into the street outside. I can guarantee that you are safe and sound here. We only charge a protection fee of 50,000 yuan, which is very authentic. Jin Maoqiang had a fierce expression on his face, but the next second he grinned and stood up to ask, pretty guy, then there's nothing to talk about. Yang Suiyun smiled and said, protection fee. Can you give it to me? Okay, let's talk about it. Jin Mao gave a cold snort and turned around directly. Wait a minute, since you're here, why bother to let you come back empty-handed? Take this gift back, I'll give it to the crown prince. Jin Maoqiang and the others were stunned and they saw Yang Suiyun take out a gun from his pocket and then take out a bullet. After putting the bullets into Jin Maoqiang's shirt pocket, Yang Suiyun patted his shoulder, looked down at him, and smiled, how many guns and bullets can you buy for 100,000 yuan? 1 million yuan. There are many people in Hongxing, but from the dragon head to the subordinates, no one is invincible. A month of 100,000, a year of 1.2 million, you can't eat so many bullets. For a moment, not only Jin Maoqiang and the other 3 were stunned, but even Dong Debiao and Chen Haonan looked at Yang Suiyun with a surprised expression on their faces. Isn't Yang Suiyun without a background? Why do you pull out a gun if you don't agree now? Is it intentional or accidental? Whether it's the club or the bandits, Yang Suiyun never considered compromise because he always remembers what the teacher said. To seek peace through struggle leads to peaceful existence, and to seek peace through compromise leads to peaceful demise. Show your strength at critical moments, otherwise various troubles will come one after another. In this Hong Kong complex, the map of Hong Kong Island is even larger than expected, indicating how many clubs and dangerous elements are lurking on the island. Since his travels, Yang Suiyun has been mentally prepared. Jin Maoqiang walked away with the people. His expression before leaving was very complicated, as if he had eaten his large intestine 9 times. Chen Haonan couldn't help but ask, Brother Yun, where did you get the gun? Yang Suiyun took out the magazine and handed it to Chen Haonan, saying with a smile, this is a domestically produced Type 54 pistol, commonly known as the Big Black Star, which was gifted by a business friend. Lu Yaozu. Fake, who is your friend? What you're doing in street fighting is buying and selling without any capital. Dong Debiao heard this kind of thing for the first time and curiously said, Boss, what kind of business does your friend do? Yang Suiyun didn't even think about it and replied, investment. The other party is engaged in investment, and they have their own business both domestically and internationally. But Brother Yun, where did anyone deliver guns? Chen Haonan said with a look of, I don't believe it. Dong Debiao on the side nodded subconsciously. Young Suiyun said seriously, Hong Kong Island has not returned, and the monsters on the island are dancing wildly. What is the most important thing? Chen Haonan said somewhat uncertain, power. Dong Debiao also gave his own answer. Money. None of them are right, safety first, safety first. Is it reasonable to give a gun because safety comes first? The two of them pouted, but didn't say much. Boss, is it safe for you to carry it with you like this? Yes, Brother Yun, it would be troublesome if someone saw him. Don't worry, I'm not a gangster. What are you investigating me for? By the way, don't tell anyone about this. Also, be careful not to let Jin Maoqiang and his gang retaliate. Chen Haonan looked worried and said, it's okay during the day, but I'm afraid they'll come and destroy it at night. Don't worry, just let them do it. You just need to protect yourself, count the losses, and leave the debt collection to me. After pausing for a while, Yang Suiyun looked at Dong Debiao and said, you will stay here for the next few days. With you here, those short mules dare not be too reckless. Dong Debiao smiled and said, no problem. Upon hearing this, Chen Haonan's eyes lit up. The room on the 5th floor was nice and much more comfortable than at home. Brother Yun, why don't I also live here? Yang Suiyun slapped and scolded with a smile, go home and live. Fighting and killing have no future, there is a dead end. If you want to become a store manager or manager in the future, just learn something hard. I have a good view of you, don't be satisfied with the status quo. Others can live in villas, drive luxury cars, and have big meals, and you can do it too. Upon discovering Yang Suiyun's serious expression, the two were deeply moved. After explaining to everyone, Yang Suiyun took Dong Debiao to Causeway Bay. More than 2 hours later, a group of people appeared in front of the gate of the game city. Boss, this is it. Okay, when you go in and see that kid later, just grab him. Boss, should we smash this shop and let him know the boss's prowess? The boss slapped and cursed, fool, this shop belongs to me. Damn it. I didn't flatter well, so my subordinates smiled awkwardly. But it was just a slap, and my subordinates didn't mind. It was better than Qian Wendy's coward, who was directly sent to prison and worked for the boss. Unfortunately, I'm in prison for nothing. My subordinates couldn't help but pity Qian Wendy. End of this chapter.